This is Jim Brown, Chairman of the Board of Finance, and I want to welcome everybody to the budget hearing. We have on our agenda health and welfare, public works, culture and recreation. We are going to move the library to another night sometime next week. So we'll call this meeting to order. I'm just going to ask, because we have a lot of new people at this meeting, we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. So, I just want to make sure, Mr. Basin, are you back? Mr. Walsh?
I'm here.
Okay.
Here.
All right, just to the public, I'm sorry that I apologize that it's 9 o'clock and we're just starting our budget hearing. There was some work we needed to get done, as some of our work has been postponed due to the current situation. So we are going to start our budget hearing. I have a couple of comments, and then we're going to hear from the first select woman, and then we have some questions for our finance department. So before we begin, I just want to start on behalf of our board. Just wish to thank the emergency management team for the work they're doing to keep the public safe and informed of the ongoing developments as it pertains to the virus. And thank you to the first select woman for her updates and coordinating the overall town efforts as we combat this virus. So it was just last month that the first select woman put forth a budget, and that budget reflected her vision for Fairfield's future. It was a budget that had the right message, will have the right message, and it had the right priorities for the town. But as we all know, much has changed in the 4 weeks or so since the Board of Selectmen passed that budget. And our short-term priorities are now different than they were 1 month ago. There is bipartisan recognition that the budget needs to be adjusted, as our short-term situation has changed dramatically due to the pandemic. And its fate would have it, as we are now in the midst of uncertainty and an economic meltdown that will take time to get out of. So each of us knows people that are directly impacted economically, and many of us are impacted ourselves. And that would include me and our own business. And the longer this goes on, the greater the impact. So it's incumbent upon us to review this budget to reflect that reality, as it's not an easy time. And in addition, we need to remember that we also have the uncertainty and financial pressure caused by the fill pile issue. That up until a few weeks ago, that was our largest challenge. But on a positive note, I know and am sure as a board we will do what is necessary for the taxpayer and the town, not just for the short term, but for the mid and long term. We are lucky and fortunate that all of us and all the town bodies from in the past, that our financial decisions over the past number of years provides us some financial levers to use. We have some flexibility. And in using those levers, we should always keep in mind that Fairfield needs to make pragmatic decisions, not just for today, but for tomorrow. We are committed to working with all the town bodies to get through it, working together in a positive way, making the best decision for the town that we possibly can, and given the challenge and uncertainties that we face. And as we face this challenge, and as with all the uncertainties, we also have the CARES Act. And we need concrete information on that CARES Act and how that will affect Fairfield. So that's where we stand as we begin this budget process. And I'd like to hear from the first selectman would like to address our board and then I'll turn it over to the board if there are any further comments. So, Mrs. Kupchak.
Hi, Jim. Can you hear me?
Yes, but you have an echo. You have an echo behind you.
Okay.
How about this?
It sounded like you were ranting.
Sorry, I'm using my phone and I'm looking at you on the computer. This is very strange. Can you hear me now?
I can, very well, thank you.
Okay. I would first say thank you. I know this is a very strange situation that we're all finding ourselves in. And again, we are all in this together, and I know I appreciate your comments, Chairman Brown, about finding ourselves in a very precarious situation that none of us in our lifetime have ever thought we would be in. And obviously, a lot of this is an unknown for all of us. We don't know exactly what will happen, or we can't predict everything because it is unknown. And at the same time, I think I want to ensure that we also project some positivity to our community, that our government still is going to operate and serve the community. And so I understand we have given, our finance department has been working, we have all been working very hard to produce and supply the various boards, the Board of Finance and the RTM, with information so that you can make the best decision possible. The only thing I do ask, and I have a few comments besides that, is that we all work together on this. Because at the end of the day, I have to run the town when this is all finished. And I'm hoping that you at least provide me with the tools to be able to do that for our community. And so there are some things that I still think are important, and I know this is a difficult time and everyone is very concerned. And so some of the things that I thought were important in my first budget before this all hit, a couple of them or a few of them, I still think are very important. When I asked for an addition to the Economic Development Department, I thought that would be a person who would be out selling Fairfield so we could add businesses to our town. And now I believe that position would be vitally important to save businesses in our town. I am very fearful. Right now, our Economic Development Department is really jumping. The phones are ringing nonstop, and Mark Barnhart is dealing with a lot of businesses who are looking for guidance and assistance navigating through the various programs that are available, in addition to things that we could hopefully do for businesses. My fear is that, we'll make decisions that could ultimately hurt and not give me the tools to help these businesses that are going to really need as much help as they can. I fear seeing empty storefronts all throughout our town, and I want to do everything in the town's power to make sure that doesn't happen. And so I still think that while that position was originally just, thought to do something different, I still think it would be vitally important in a different way now. I also think that the grant coordinator, the part-time grant coordinator, who was supposed to assist departments with their grants, would shift to be able to help us with disaster relief funds, because those grant applications will be very complicated and detailed. And so I think that position at $35,000 will be more than valuable to our community in a different way than I originally thought, in addition, though, to what I thought. So those are the two comments that I have. I know we're looking at a lot of things. There's executive orders flying out of the governor's office. Literally, our email boxes are jammed with them. Attorney Baldwin is working really hard to review them along with other attorneys to make sure that we can understand them, and then to ask for changes or additional information from the governor's chief counsel during our twice-a-week calls with the governor's office. And so I'm just saying to all of you that I'm here. I want to work with you. I don't view this, I know sometimes in the past, as I've watched, after I left the town elected official role from the state, I watched a lot of adversarial meetings between the Board of Finance and the First Selectman's Office and the RTM. And, I think it's really important for our community to see us banding together, working together for the greater good of our community, because people are really filled with anxiety, so much anxiety right now. And I think that we can show them that we can come together as a community, as elected members of this community, and work together for the better of the town in a civil and in a cooperative and collaborative effort. So with that, I'm here for you guys. Anything you need, our finance department is here. I am here. My department heads, who've been on the phone for 2 hours waiting to present, are here, and they're all working really hard. It's been a challenge, a real challenge, most especially for some departments, challenging to work in this environment. It's very different than it was before. So I really want to applaud our department heads and our employees for stepping up and working in a very different environment and doing work to make sure that our community is still operating. We're not just shut down and everyone went home like some communities. We're still working. We're still doing work. And I think that's really important, and it's a testament to the people who work for our town and our community. So I don't know, Mr. Brown, did you want me to answer any questions, or did you just want me to make a statement?
No, thank you, Mrs. Kupchak. Let me just open it up to the board. Are there any comments, further comments from the board? Any questions to?
I have a comment.
Mr. Walsh?
Yeah, I've never really found ourselves to be really adversarial. I mean, on the other hand, just because the parties change in the First Selectman's office doesn't mean, I think we're showing that we're asking all the same questions we normally do during this budget season, and that'll continue. But we are in unprecedented times, and this budget that was prepared for another time. I know the First Selectwoman worked very hard on it, but those times have changed, and those revenue lines are going to change significantly, and we've got to change the expense lines as well to make up for losses that will be on the revenue. It's going to be, I think, what I'm hearing around town is I'm hearing continually that taxpayers don't want to pay any increase. They think it's shocking that we'd even consider an increase based on the tough times that they're going through. But to get to a 0% increase when you have a Board of Ed that, the teachers are going to be getting under their contract 3.5% increase. And the other town unions, rightfully with negotiations that they did, we're going to get increases as well. It's really hard to try to keep this to a 0% increase. We're charged with a lot of issues that we're going to need, tough decisions that we're going to need to make. And we saw the stuff that Mr. Bremer sent to us as suggestions. I think we're going to have to make a lot of questions regarding some of those revenue items. I mean, all along, it's just a 20% guess of where revenue is going to go. I think we're going to have to question the department heads on their revenue projections. I also think that we're going to have to make some cuts in certain areas that we would have never made cuts to before. But it's going to be hard to put 4 new positions in this town with the First Select Woman's initiatives that were made at a different time when she prepared her budget. And I think the board should talk about that, of whether we just want to take a look at that, whether we want to just all agree or have some sense that we're not going to be adding those positions, or that we are, and then we'll go through with them as we talk about each department. I'll do either way.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Walsh.
Mr. Brown?
Yes, Mrs. Kupchak.
I just would like to say, no, I completely understand, and believe me, no one knows it better than me. So I'm here, and I'm sitting in my office, and I'm listening to our public every single day, literally hundreds and hundreds of emails in response to my newsletters. I think I have a pretty good pulse on our community. But I also, I want to be careful that we don't sort of like cut off our nose to spite our face. And I'm saying that there are going to be, and I believe there will be, some strategic decisions that should be made that will enable our town to be able to assist in very specific areas our business community, who is going to need all the help they can get. And that's not just for them, who are very important part of our community, but also it's vitally important that we help them so that they stay here and they continue to pay taxes in our town. So that is an important part. I also believe that, again, the disaster relief funds that are going to become available, and I believe that Congress will be sending a lot more down as the coming months ensue to assist municipalities and states. So we have to also keep that in mind. So I don't want to, I understand we're all in a difficult position, and there are some options and tools in the toolbox, and I spoke to Chairman Brown about this. You know, there's bonding options, there's, you know, the fund balance is specifically for emergencies. And if I don't think there's a greater emergency I've ever seen in my entire lifetime than this right here. So I want to be able to assist, obviously, and make sure we are sensitive and we are considerate of our taxpayers, but I also want to make sure that we don't decimate our town so that it can't come back and be able to do the things that it needs to do to move our community forward and be able to have a vibrant and economically vibrant community. So those are just my comments. And again, I will say that I am here. I want to work with all of you, and I hope we all can work together in a collaborative way.
Mr. Chair, this is Jack Testani. Can I just ask a question of the First Select Woman? And it's sort of will correspond to the Health Department while we're speaking of the pandemic.
Mr. Testani, go ahead.
I was just curious, Mrs. Kupchak, do we have any updates as to where the town is? There have been reports from various communities that, you know, some communities have, quote unquote, you know, reached their peak. They're starting to flatten the curve, so to speak. You know, do we have any updates with regard to your, you know, information as to where Fairfield is in the pandemic and, you know, what we could expect for the next couple of weeks?
So I'm assuming most of you are, and if not all of you, are signed up for my newsletters. And obviously, I work directly with my emergency operations team, and Sans Clary is a member of that, and he is coming up next. And so, yes, right. He has said repeatedly that we are in the acceleration phase of the pandemic. And as illustrated by the numbers that I send out in the newsletter that say, you know, the numbers go up every day, literally every day. And we just lost our 7th resident yesterday. So that's why I've been, you know, sort of very firm on my stance about people, you know, being, you know, performing their civic duty and staying home and not interacting with people outside their households except for to go to the grocery store or get medical supplies or pick up food, because it's vitally important. And frankly, I think the steps we took early on have helped our community stay in a more, I think, a less accelerated rate than the communities around us. So he has said, Sans, and he can speak more about that when he comes up next, we are in the acceleration phase, and he says the next 2 to 3 weeks are going to be the really crucial time for all of us to hunker down, because this is when we need to, the numbers will continue to go up. And if we all do our part and stay home and be careful and wash our hands and do everything they're saying, we could see us just come back down. So Sans, again, can speak more about that. And I just want to shout out to Sans Clary, all of you, by the way. He is working, I can't even tell you how much he is working, and his department, and every weekend calls to all throughout, helping with nursing homes. He's doing extraordinary work. They're working nonstop. And so I hope you won't keep him on the phone too long tonight, because he's really tired and he needs some rest. But he can update Jack a little bit better than I can.
Okay, so we won't ask Mr. Clary those questions right now, because we have to focus on the budget. perhaps will have a minute
But we're
to
sending out
speak.
another newsletter tomorrow morning, so there'll be updated information in there for everybody. And
Okay.
I'll post it on social media too.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Kupchak. Just please hang on there for one moment. Anyone else?
Sure.
Yes.
Just, Mr. Walsh, just want to go to Mrs. Leclerc first. Mrs. Leclerc?
Yes, I have a question for Brenda. Because as we discussed earlier tonight, with the relief required by the governor for, tax payments, I think the best way to help our taxpayers right now is to lower our tax increase. And so are you willing to help us with what possible administrative changes you could make to our budget to help reduce the tax rate that was originally proposed by you and the Board of Selectmen?
Yeah, we have, Mary. We've sent a lot of information, and you and I spoke about this, I believe, last Sunday, about the information that we've sent, the various options to lower the taxes throughout the whole, what would need to be done, and some options for all of you to consider.
Well, point of order, is that something you sent to the entire board?
This was a conversation.
It was a conversation. So if you have specific options.
Mr. Mottola,
that you
Mr.
want us to
Mottola, it's what you
consider.
received from Mr. Bremer, I believe is what Mrs. Kupchak
That's
is.
it? Thank
Yes,
you.
that's,
Thank you.
yes. Sorry, John.
That's all right.
Mrs. Leclerc, do you have any follow-up?
That's really it. That's all I wanted to ask, is that she can continue to assist us in trying to find places where we can save on costs and expenses.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Marmion?
Yes, thank you. We did receive that information from Mr. Bremer, as well as some answers to our questions. Is there a specific time, and I'm asking this to Mr. Brown, our chairman, is there a specific time that we're going to actually go through some of this? Are we going to hold off until we know more in terms of revenue that's been affected? What's kind of our timeline? Are we going to kind of discuss these issues as we go through the specific department budgets? I'm just curious in terms of the process for when we're going to have a larger discussion about this.
Referring to specifically?
Yeah.
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 We're going to get a brief from the finance department next, okay? And then we'll go through we're going to get a brief on where they feel that we're going to end up fiscal year 2020. Some of the projections for revenue on 2021. So you know what Mr. Bremer sent over just today at 12:18 today? That was sent to us from Mrs. Comforter. We'll start with that. We'll start with those questions.
Okay, so we're doing this at this meeting.
Yes, we'll do that at this meeting.
Okay.
And then we'll go to
Thank
the
you.
departments. Mr. Walsh?
Yeah, to the first select woman. So you seem to want to keep these positions. Are you willing to recommend that we terminate other positions to cover for those positions if we want to try to keep taxes down? Are there positions you think we can terminate or just not fund?
Well, again, Mr. Walsh, I think that I just was expressing that I felt that those two positions would be helpful in us, number one, in protecting our business community and helping them, and also the grant person, I think, is going to be very helpful in bringing in funding through grants and disaster relief and the CARE Act and a whole host of other programs I'm sure the federal government will be sending down to us, that they're going to need a lot of work, and applications take a lot of time. And we don't have a grant. We don't have anybody like that here. Other towns do have them. My original intent was to have the person help our departments with their grants and track them so we wouldn't lose them, because sometimes that happens. But obviously it would be completely different now. It would be, they would assist them with those things as well, but disaster relief funds, because we're going to need that money.
Okay,
and
so
we're
the
really
answer...
going to need it. And we don't have anybody on staff in this entire town who can fill out disaster relief fund grants. We don't have a grant writer.
So the answer is no, there's no other positions you would suggest to us that we might be able to not fund in order to cover those ones that you want to keep.
Well, I'm saying that, you know, the economic development person was about, I think, 120 or 30,000, and the grant person was about 35,000. And those two positions, I mean, that's not a huge amount of money. I mean, again, we do have an emergency fund. There's funding there. And these funds, those two positions could actually help us generate income.
As Mr. Bremer said, you're talking about putting fund balance into the budget?
I'm talking about using, and again, I've never run a town before. It's my first time, but I've been told repeatedly that that fund is for emergencies. And so if everyone wants to lower the taxes, I agree, you know, but there's only so many avenues when, you know, the Board of Ed is 2/3 of your budget and the rest of it, it's the town. And frankly, the town has not had any substantial investment or increase in a very long time. Those two positions literally could generate income. I mean, income, tax income and disaster relief income. So that's money coming in, which we need. So that's the only reason I suggested it.
Mr. Walsh, you have a follow-up?
Yeah, would you be in favor of using enough fund balance that would actually drive us to potentially losing our AAA bond rating?
Absolutely not.
Okay, I just want to be clear about that.
And I know I was
two,
at your meeting with our person who handles that, Matt, and he, you know, expressed and shared information to say that we have a very healthy fund balance. And it's supposed to be, you know, it's way above what, I mean, even when it was apparently, according to him during that night when he was speaking with all of you, even when it was at a very low, I think 5% when Mr. Flato was the first selectman, we still didn't lose our AAA. And I'm not suggesting we do anything like that, of course, but I'm also saying that there is some room there to be able to make sure our town, we can give the tax relief to our residents without jeopardizing our AAA or doing, I mean, listen, there's a lot of cuts and things that and changes we're all going to need to make across the board, but there's only so many changes to a very lean budget as it was. It wasn't like I had a 10% tax increase in my budget. It was, it was 2.46. It's not huge. So again, it's going to be a lot of money. I mean, you're talking a significant cuts to be able to get to a 0% tax increase for our residents. I mean, significant. There's got to be a couple of options. I think the Board of Finance needs to look at all different options and balance and try to take a little from here and there and not just decimate one side of it, but to look at everything.
I will say I appreciated Mr. Bremer's page, but I really believe that the Board of Selectmen should have taken this entire budget back and redone it and then pass it on to us. We're kind of in this unenviable position where we're getting a budget that we're almost having to throw in the garbage in a way and create something from scratch in a way. That's the kind of level.
Well, I don't know if that's necessarily true, because I think there are some strategic things that you can do to get us there. It's going to take a little bit of everything, and it's not going to be just one thing. And we can't take the budget back. But I, again, want to work with the Board of Finance, and I'm here, and the Finance Department is here, and we're here. We're here.
Well,
we're here. We're happy to work with you guys.
I understand you're trying to do that, but the problem is when we see the $3.8 million of expense cuts or savings you want to do, and really it's $3 million of bonding. There's, when you look at the expense cuts, the $3.8 million,
right? It's
$3 million of bonding. I mean, we could reduce spending by $50 million and take out a $50 million bond. That's not really.
Well, I don't think we should do that, but 3.8.
It's just, I think we were looking for more cuts that we're gonna
Well,
you know, get past it now, because that's the hard work that we're about to start. But it's just, we're kind of caught between a rock and a hard place here, and we're gonna just have to dig in and make the difficult decisions I think the Board of Selectmen should have started with, and we will have to just do that, and we're gonna do our best, and where it comes out, it comes out.
well, our charter doesn't allow for us to take the budget back, Jim, but again, that's why we're here. I mean, the administration is working and is happy to work and will continue, and we gave information to everybody with some ideas and suggestions. $3.8 million into bonding when interest rates are so incredibly low. I mean, doesn't, you know, to me and our finance department, people are way smarter than I am and have finance degrees, think that that's a good idea, that's some way to take some pressure off the budget. And so to get the tax rate below 1.5% after the 3.8, you know, you're looking at an additional $2 million.
Yep.
So what can you do? You know, could you take the $2 million out of the fund balance? Can you take some of it? Can you make some adjustments throughout the budget here and there? But again, my budget wasn't bloated. It wasn't like I had a huge budget. You know, we were very careful and we worked really hard on it. So I just think that, you know, I understand you feel uncomfortable, and everyone maybe on the Board of Finance, listen, I get it. I feel uncomfortable every day. I have to run this town during a pandemic. But at the same time, I'm here. You know, we're here, and we want to do this together. And I don't think any of you should feel like it's, you know, only your responsibility. We want to be helpful. We want to do this together and take all the responsibility together as elected officials who are in the town.
What's going to happen if say we bought into your revenue projections and say they were significantly lower? Say they were not off by 20%. Say they were off by 40%.
But again, these are assumptions, Jim. Nobody knows, Jim. Nobody knows.
I know, but
these
here's
are educated assumptions. But again, and again, the governor sent an executive order that allows us to modify the budget after, if things significantly change, which is a good thing to have because we didn't have that before. But right now, it's all guesstimates. It's all guesstimates. Nobody has the answer. We don't have a crystal ball. We don't know.
I understand that. And one of the things as the Board of Finance, as we go through this, is if those revenues fall substantially, we are probably going to, you know, my thought is use the fund balance to backstop the loss of those revenues. So regardless of, you know, and that could be a significant hit to the fund balance. I mean, and thank God the fund balance is where it is, because we're also going to be using some of it to kind of advance money against this tax deferral system that we have. I guess we're just going to have to get into it, but I mean, my biggest fear is that there's a lot of things on balance, and one of them I think that we have to do, and I don't even know whether we're going to get all the state funding that we are promised, because the state of Connecticut's going to be doing so bad, not getting their revenues from closing down all these businesses and income tax and all these other things. So
right, and that, and again, we've got the CARE Act and disaster relief funds, and I mean, let's face it, you know, Congress is going to be up next year for re-election, and I'm sure there's going to be a whole lot of programs headed to states to help people out. And I think, and we're going to benefit from it. And now how much, I don't know, but I know we're going to get relief. We're going to get relief funds. So you're right. I mean, we don't know exactly, and I wouldn't suggest that we take everything out of, you know, huge amount to bring us to a zero, because you're right, we're going to need some later on if we need to, or make additional cuts. But it is a precarious.
Okay, what I'd like to do, if you don't mind, there's a few people that have some questions, and then I'd like to make a statement and then kind of move on.
Okay.
All right. But Mr. Bateson, you had a question?
Wasn't along the lines of a question. It was more along the lines of Walsh pretty much said everything I was feeling. the budget I'm looking at now is nowhere near a reflection of the realities we're living in. And part of me going forward and dealing with this over the next couple of weeks is we have to acknowledge the fact that, or let's all hope that we survive the health crisis, but we're also going to have to realize that we're going to be living in a, post-COVID socioeconomic upheaval that, all of us that have careers are dealing with this right now. I mean, we're struggling to keep our businesses alive, our industries to compete and do all these things. And we need to recognize that when the dust settles on this, it's a whole new world. And I think part of me is going to be deflecting or pushing back on the town to acknowledge that, we have 1,000 employees. Are those 1,000 employees necessary? I mean, everything needs to be on the table. And that's where I am that, I'm considering taking actions that I never would have considered before just because this situation has presented itself and demands our attention and change. So that's where I am. I just wanted to drop that in there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bates. And Mr. Mottola, you had a comment?
Yeah, I mean, so, first of all, Mr. Chairman, I thank you for your opening comments. I agree with them almost 100%. I do agree with Ms. Kupchak's statement that we should not do certain things to decimate the town. There has to be a balance. So that's all I want to say. I wanted to offer one suggestion, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, and whatever the board wants to do or you want to do. The sheet we got today from Mr. Bremer, I would prefer to talk about that at a later meeting and get through some of the department heads. I just think we should move forward with the department heads and then have one meeting where we're having a discussion about what's on this sheet. That's my thought, and I just wanted to throw it out there.
Great idea, John.
Yeah, I
Agree.
Agree.
I totally agree.
So I just want to correct, Ed, we don't have 1,000 employees. We have 462 full-time employees. And I totally get what you're saying, though. It's a whole new world, and and this administration is extraordinarily aware of it every single day. And there are things that I am planning and preparing for in the coming year, things that I can do as an administrator, as the chief CEO of the town. But that's not something that is going to happen before you pass your budget.
All right, thank you, Mrs.
All right, well, thank
Ed?
you all. And again, I just want to reiterate, we're here.
Just one
we're
last
here.
thing before you go, is this. Yeah, I think we all know there's no easy way out of this. And there's going to be some pain. And it's going to hurt. And there's people that are going to be disappointed. Because we can't just move forward and say, well, we have this fund balance or we have these other levers, because we will, I think, end up looking at the best way to use the fund balance. We're going to have to look at the options, but we are going to have to look at these expenses, and I know everyone knows this, including you, Mrs. Kupchak. We need to look at our expenses. We need to have these revenue projections. We need to be conservative. We need to understand that we're in uncharted waters. We've always said we've had difficult budget seasons, but I don't think there's a budget season that's been more difficult or it's going to be more difficult than this one. So we'll look at every avenue, and we'll keep an open line of communication. So thank you for your comments, and
I appreciate you guys, and I know that we can, that you'll look at it in a balanced way and apply a balanced approach. And again, I just want to say we're here anytime any of you need our help.
Right. All right, thank you very much. And
all right, thank you.
As far as how we move forward, I mean, I'm in agreement with Mr. Walsh. We just have to be careful. We have to take a look at this fund balance as something that is more of a backdrop. But with that said, I agree with everybody that it's getting late as I'm getting my private chat, little text, and we can easily adapt. And, we were going to go through the finances with Mr. Bremer and Ms. Mrs. Bassi, but we will not do that tonight. I hope you can all agree that we want to get our department heads before us to listen to their budgets, and we can come back to this in short order. So with that said, Mr. Sands Cleary, you are up. You are first, but first didn't really buy you too much time, did it? Because it's 9:40. So before we start, Mr. Cleary, again, thank you for everything you're doing for the town. We appreciate it. It's a lot of stress on all of us, and it's a lot of stress on you. So thank you for that. We'll go to page 223. And Mr. Cleary, are you with us?
I'm here, and thank you for your comments.
Okay, so if the board goes to 223, we'll go to expenses. Mr. Cleary, anything you want to point out to us?
Sure, I'll point out there's 4 changes here. We increased our temporary payroll by $12,000. We reduced our motor vehicle fuel and lube by $1,316. We reduced our postage by $500, and we increased our travel and meeting by $600. Some of those are based upon 3-year averages, and the reductions are just around, looking at the 3-year averages as well and some of the expenses that we have. The biggest one is the temporary payroll. That one is our sub-budget. And so even when I went back and looked at averaging in this year where we are and where we expect to be this year, we're currently probably about $9,000 over budget on that line item. And this is just the variables of people going out on long leaves for various medical conditions and having to cover those positions, and a host of reasons why we need subs for long periods of time. And so we're basically going on essentially a 3, or if you consider it a 4-year average there, to get that in alignment. We've been kind of going over most years, and so for the last couple of years, we've been trying to get that in alignment. So that is really the changes on the expenses side. Oh, in addition, and again, if we want to talk about it right now, we did put in a request for one school nurse. That would be for Stratfield School, where Stratfield School had an increase over the last 2 years of 82 students, 62 the previous year, 20 this year. And what that has had is an effect where the number of visits at that school has gone up substantially, because these are young kids with unique medical needs. These are kids that came over from the ECC program. And so right now, Stratfield School, between August and January, is seeing, for example, it's a stool of 480. We're seeing, with a census of 480, we're seeing 3,122 visits to the school nurse as of January. That exceeds Fairfield Ludlow High School, Fairfield Ward High School at the same time period, which saw 2,685 and 2,588 in terms of visits, and those have more than 3 times the number of students. So we're just seeing an extraordinarily high level of activity. Fairfield Ward and Fairfield Ludlow have 2 full-time nurses and a part-time aide in those offices. So what we're asking for Stratfield is 1 full-time nurse to help with that burden that's going on there. And so I'll leave it at that for questions.
All right, thank you, Mr. Cleary. Questions for Mr. Cleary on the expense side before we go to revenue? Mr. Walsh?
Sands, so I understand the ECC moved to Stratfield, and where did those children come from?
From the ECC program at Fairfield Ward High School.
Fairfield Ward. So at Fairfield Ward, how many kids came to Stratfield from Fairfield Ward?
82. So, but I believe that the census at ECC, it was a component of bringing in more kids to the program. And again, I apologize, I don't have the exact numbers of enrollment at ECC. Let me just see if I have that on this other chart. ECC currently has 150 students there right now. And so, and they're seeing, and because those students are sort of high acuity, they're seeing visits that exceed, other schools with higher census, so they're seeing visits comparable to Dwight and North Stratfield at that school that have full-time nurses.
Okay, so the question I guess I have is, it would make sense that if all those children moved over, that a nurse from Fairfield Ward would have moved over with them. And because there would be less demand at the ECC students who are still at Andrew Ward.
So there's essentially two schools at Fairfield Ward. There's the ECC program, which has one full-time nurse that's seeing visits as comparable to any other type of elementary school. And then there's the Fairfield Ward high school nurses, and those are seeing visits that I said in the area of like 2,700 visits for the mid-year, with 2.5 staff handling that. And that's something we worked over, you probably recall, working on getting health aides in there to help with some of the demands placed on that office because of some of the increased demands for more behavioral health aspects of working with high school students and just more meetings and the like with the high school level students.
Okay, so doesn't it seem to make... Okay, go ahead. Sorry. It's essentially the high school students, the high school nurses for Fairfield Ward High School don't see the ECC kids. There's a separate school, a separate part of the school, Sure.
closed off, and they have their own nurse there that's seeing visits that are comparable to what we have at other schools where we have a full-time nurse.
So when the kids before they left, they all seem to be being treated on the ECC side. Let's forget Andrew Ward High School.
Yeah.
That's blocked off. But just the ECC, you were able to have one nurse handle all of those students?
So if my recollection suits me, and this is the data that I don't have, I believe this represents the change represents an increase in the overall students that participate in the town-wide ECC program. So it's an increase in students that are overall. It's not that they just took students out of the Fairfield Ward ECC program and shifted them over. They increased the overall students, the availability of ECC slots in the town.
All right. Would you be able to get us the number that it went up from last year to this year, so we could see how many students it went up by?
At Stratfield School?
Well, there was a certain number where one nurse was able to handle everybody at the ECC. But then the change happened, and now how many people are there in the two programs? The one that's at Fairfield Ward, and then the one that's at Stratfield. Because you said there was an increase. I want to see what the increase was.
Yeah, so the increase was 82 students.
So Fairfield
62
Ward
last year and 20 this year.
And then Fairfield Ward still has the same number of ECC students as they've always had.
You know what? I'll have
They
to,
didn't
that's
have a
the number
decrease.
I would have. That's the number I have to get you. I'll have to research that specifically. But my understanding was that this represented a net increase of the ECC slots available in the town, so that there was additional students brought in, not a moving of students. But I will get you those numbers for the ECC census over the last few years.
That would be great. Thank you.
Sure.
And the maintenance of your equipment, it went up 15.38%. I know it's not a lot dollar amount, but is that just an average of what it's been costing you to maintain, repair your equipment, or do you have additional equipment now that needs to have repair?
Maintenance and repair.
It went up on the line item from year to year by 15.3%. I know it's not a lot of dollar amount, but we talk about increases in general.
I'm just looking at maintenance and repair, 1,300. It's the same as last year. My line item 54310, maintenance and repair, stayed at $1,300. Are you talking about the expenses again?
I'm looking at line 54310, and
54310.
you asked for it was last year was $1,300, which was the fiscal year budget. Then it went up,
Okay.
now it's gone up for your request by the department, went to $1,500. And the first select woman's budget kept your $1,500 for a 15.38%.
Okay, that's, the data that I have in front of me does not reflect that, but that's really essentially, the couple things come out of there is just, I believe one of our, I don't want to misspeak, but I believe one of our, no, that comes out of rental and storage. I'd have to look at that. I'm not seeing that in the numbers that I have in front of me show that it stayed at 1,300, and so I'm sorry, I don't seem to see what you're seeing in the numbers I have before me. I'm trying to find them.
I'm just looking at the budget book. So if you could take a look at that and explain to us what the difference is when you have a chance to look at it. You only need the $1,300. Also, just let us know that. And can you tell us why your travel and meetings went up by 20%?
Travel and meetings. So with that one, I just went with the 3-year average there. So for us, travel and meetings isn't about conferences and the like. Travel and meetings is about reimbursing nurses for the travel that they do between schools over the year and the travel they do to go to trainings. And so it's not about going to conferences or anything like that. It's just mileage. And so that's a reflection of actual experience. So over the last 3 years, that number has been over. So we just felt the need to adjust it to reflect what our actual expenses are.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Excuse me, this is Tom Bremer, just reaching in a little bit. I'm listening to the conversation regarding 54310 line, the 1,300 versus 1,500. If you look at the Munis FY21 proposed budget with text, the line 54310 is for maintenance and repair, and it is 1,500. It was requested to go up 200, and the reason for it is it's basically maintenance/repair of medical environmental equipment, calibration of 32 scales at the schools and Well Child Clinic, and the calibration of audiometers of $100 each. So those were the components, and it was requested for 1,500, and we left that 1,500 level in the budget. I just wanted to clear that up.
Okay, I would just have to research exactly what the change was. If it was, when I look at the line, it looks like our 3-year average is 1,479. So that may be. I might not have.
I'm sure that's what it's based on.
Okay.
All right, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
That's quite right. But that's the line that we have calibration of equipment and annual maintenance of various equipment that we have to perform for the screenings we do.
Mr. Walsh, anything else?
No, thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Basin had his hand up first, and I'll go to Mrs. Marmion.
Sorry, mine was asked by Walsh. I'm all good. Thank you.
Okay, Mrs. Marmion. Sheila? I think, Sheila, you're on mute.
Oh. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
You okay? I'm looking at your health educator line, and I'm just projecting forward in terms of what's going on with the coronavirus. And I know that you indicate in your summary that your health education programs include a number of things: Matter of Balance, Fresh Start, Diabetes Prevention Program, Chronic Disease and Diabetes Support Group. But given where we are with the pandemic in terms of educating our public about the coronavirus, and obviously this is going to go into next year until we actually get more testing and a vaccine, do you feel the need to shift these programs a bit from an educational standpoint, and do you see the need for if we can't shift those programs, do you see the need for additional educational resources that your department would need?
So to be clear, every position in my department has shifted what they're doing to respond to this pandemic. Every single position is doing something, some added responsibility is been added to their position. And so, yes, we are not necessarily doing all of those programs right now because our health educator is serving on the public information work team of the emergency management team, is producing content every single day that's used by a variety of departments, is participating in statistical analysis, is doing a variety of different work. So we will adjust the work of the staff as we go through the various waves of this pandemic to respond to the needs. So yes, we will not be doing necessarily all the same programs. We will try to do that. We do have some grant-funded programs that we're obligated to continue that she will work on, and we have a part-time intern that's on some of those grants that will take care of some of the work of that. So some will continue, but a lot of it will change as the demands have just changed for everybody.
I guess my question is, and I'm glad to hear that you've shifted some of this because obviously you need to, but as you look to next year, do you think you have what you need? This is such a critically important role in your department. Do you have what you need?
So, again, I would say yes. For right now, we have what we need, that we're functioning. We think as we move forward, I mean, this wave will end. And we don't know what the next wave or two will entail, but my gut tells me that things will shift in terms of the demands placed upon us, whether we'll be distributing therapeutic remedies, antivirals, or different medicines, or whether at some point we'll be offering mass vaccination. When a vaccine becomes available. So those things will change the role of our department and change the work that we do. But for right now, I haven't considered adding, more positions. What's happening right now, and it's a testament to the leadership of the town right now, is that, all of this burden is not falling on the health department. There's firemen and policemen and librarians, and our school nurses are stepping up to the plate and doing things that are different. And every department is taking on different roles related to COVID-19, from public works, posting signs and re-putting up chains and blocking off areas to help reduce people getting together, to recreation, doing all sorts of work. And other departments. So the entire burden of this isn't falling on the health department. We are obviously playing a role on the emergency management team and serving as, subject matter experts in certain areas and providing guidance to various departments. It's a collaborative team effort, and we spend lots of time together, lots of weekends together, lots of nights together. We lose a lot of sleep and laugh about how little sleep we're getting at various meetings, and it's a collaborative team effort. So I wouldn't, at this point, given all that's going on, present to you a request for another position.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Marmion. Any other questions on the expense side? Mrs. Charlton?
Yes. Hi, Tans.
Hello.
Thank you again for everything that you're doing at this time for our town. Just one question. There is a line item here for fees and professional services, $35,000. What is the nature of those services?
So the bulk of that pays for our school medical advisor. So some $12,000 goes for the school medical advisor out of that line item. And we have a deputy school medical advisor that I believe gets $1,000. And then we have some database expenses that come out of that line item, about $5,000 a year for database. And so it's those types of services that we use. We have a few other sort of tech services that we use, SurveyMonkey and a couple other things that would come out of that line, but the bulk of it is actually the school medical advisor, who's our well-child clinic medical advisor. He also serves as a town medical advisor, his deputy, so when he's away, that we have another backup position, and our database represents both.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, any further questions on expenses?
Yeah.
Okay, seeing none, let's go to
Jim, I had a
revenue.
question.
Who else? Go ahead.
Sands, it's good to hear about the collaborative effort, but, obviously you're having expenses for things in town, in regards to masks for employees and stuff like, is that like hitting your budget, and is that going to continue to hit your budget next year that was not put in your budget? And I also heard that you've been giving body bags to different nursing homes and things like that. Like, where's all that supply money coming from?
So we, as you guys have many times heard me come before you for our preparedness grant for over a decade now. All of those supplies, we haven't. The health department hasn't purchased any additional personal protective equipment. That's all coming out of stockpiled materials that we have from those grants, and so we are making deliveries every single day to nursing homes and other facilities, providing as needed, as they request it, PPE. We're always encouraging them to work through their regular supply chains, but we want to ensure that if a nursing home runs out of gowns on a Saturday, that we get them the gowns they need to make it through the weekend or till they think they can get resupplied. And so that's what we're doing. We'll continue to do that. The body bags we've had since, a long time, those that we purchased, I think it was 650 body bags 10, 15 years ago, and have kept them in storage and have been well maintained, and now's the time to use them. And so we are distributing those as needed to both nursing homes and funeral directors.
Okay. And you don't think you can add anything to next year's budget?
So there is a lot of, there's a lot of funding that will be coming down. Also, since there's a presidential declaration, the cost of those things, we should be able to get 75% back on that to restock what we have. And there's as with all of these types of events, there will be funding coming down specifically for health departments to restock and replan for the next time. And so this is stuff that we've planned for this. We have plans on the books. We've done drills and exercises, and now we are implementing those plans and delivering the needed PPE that we've stockpiled for years.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Okay, then let's go to page 18. Revenue. So, Mr. Cleary,
yes,
on the revenue budget, you had $233,000, correct? Do
yes,
you see any of that in jeopardy due to our economic condition?
So the bulk of that you'll see is an increase. We working with the building department, we estimated that about 250 rental units will come online in the next in the 2021 budget period time. Again, that's an estimate. That number that increases there is reflective of that. That's the bulk of that $14,000 increase in that from fiscal year 20 estimate to 21 is. I'm just reviewing that now. It's almost $13,000 is related to that. And then we have a built-in 2% increase annually in our fees for permits. So some of that is reflected there. And then, we really went through and looked at 2-year averages on a lot of these because we did raise our fees after a fee survey a couple years back. So the 2-year average is more accurate. And then on some of these, we went through and looked at actual number of facilities. You know, the number of pools in town doesn't change that often. The number of hotels doesn't change that often. So we're actually just doing actual estimates there of what the revenue would be. And so, again, I don't have a crystal ball on what will happen with food service facilities. If history is anything, that most food service facilities in the town of Fairfield, when one goes out very shortly, you know, depending on the size, another one is moving in and taking over and reinvesting. I mean, even just this week, we're opening a new facility during the midst of a pandemic. People still want to open restaurants in Fairfield, so which is surprising to us. But so we don't think there'll be a significant change to that. There is some risk that some places will not reopen, but where we are right now, the bulk of our restaurant fees came in January, and so we've got a long time, a good 8 months before they're due again, and a lot of that, you know, the time we have almost a year and 2 months, 3 months to for those to potentially reopen, the ones that did not reopen.
Okay, thank you. Questions on revenue?
Yeah, I do. One of the reasons why the two lines for health, environmental, and health, public health went down by so drastically in your predictions, down in the one's 44%, 45, one's almost 49%.
So on those, it looks like we just went with the 3-year average on those.
That's a 3-year average against what had come in the previous year, actual.
So yeah, so there's looking at the three, you know, so they looked at the 3 previous years and did an average, and so on those particular line items, and I'll just make sure we actually did a 2-year estimate on those two. So those ones, you know, they vary. And so, we do see some variability in those lines, and so we're just reflecting the 2-year average on those two lines.
Mrs. Charlton.
Thank you. I just need a little bit of a remedial here. On the food service licenses, how are those renewed periodically? How does that revenue come in?
So the
annuals, or are they?
It's every year. So in January they're due February 1st. And we send out a letter the week after Christmas. They have a month to pay. That's where most of that comes in. Okay, so that's an annual fee. I hear what you're saying, that, you know, restaurants will still open and Fairfield's an attractive place to be, but I guess I just have to ask, given, you know, the risk to restaurants in particular, given what's happening in this environment, if you had to do this budget now, knowing what you know, would you still be budgeting an increase over the 3-year average? Yeah, that's
kind of a leftover assumption from, I mean, I realize we did this a couple months ago and maybe it's,
yep,
you know, you don't expect a dramatic difference, but knowing what you know now, because obviously we have an opportunity right now to adjust numbers if we have better information. It's hard for me to wrap my head around the fact that from a restaurant perspective in this environment in the coming year, we would actually have more revenue than we've had on average the past couple of years, which are pretty good years. And maybe some of that is rate, but in terms of the volume.
Yep. And so, I mean, the change that we've done in that particular line item is, you know, about $3,000. So it's not a significant increase in that one line item. The bulk of our increase is related to the rental units that will be coming online next year. So, you know, $13,000 of the $14,000 is really related to that.
Okay, and that assumes, though, that all the restaurants, though, will still be here and you'll still get the equivalent amount of income, right?
Yeah, again, it's given, so I've been with the town since '95, and while we see a handful of restaurants go out and never come back, most of them turn around fairly quickly. We don't see a lot of, some of the larger ones where it's more of a complex zoning process and things like that. Joe's American Bar and Grill will take a while. But some of the smaller ones, they turn over fairly quickly. We get people in there that want to, give their try at a small business, and so, again, we've built into that line, already a 2% increase that will come in already just from whatever establishments are open next year. So we have some buffer there. So I'm fairly confident of that. Is that we won't be far off on that.
Okay, all right. I don't want to belabor it. Just my sense, and I don't, want to be the purveyor of doom and gloom on everything, but just given everything that's going on, it's hard for me to believe that we're not going to have small businesses that are sadly, not permanently impacted. My other question, the other big item in this, well, big in relative terms, is health grant non-public school. And not so much even the increase from last year, but what is that and how solid is that number?
So that number is based upon, I think that one is a 2-year average that we did on that one. And that is essentially the state reimburses the town for services provided to private schools on a formula basis. And so that number, while it can be very variable over the years, that essentially when they develop the budget, then they kind of can fiddle with the formula sometime, but it's relatively consistent. And so what we did, I'm pretty sure we just averaged the 2 years there and came up with the 41,153, I believe is the number we have in there. Yeah, which is essentially an average of 2 years in there.
Okay, I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions on revenue?
I have a comment,
Okay.
Mr. Brown, and that's more to kind of, and I do really respect Mr. Cleary, but I have to say that following up with what Ms. Charlton said, we could potentially have a problem in this town. You could have 20% of the restaurants closed. And now that the governor's extended this to May 20th, I mean, every week or two you go further out, there's going to be restaurants not open. And while we have had a great decade, not more than a decade, of having increases in restaurants, it's going to be super hard to find funding to make investments in restaurants as we go forward. And that's just not my opinion. I read REIT publications all the time, and they're terrified that restaurants nationwide are going to be going out of business, small, medium, large. And to think that we won't affect our town, I think we'd have to be smoking something, quite honestly.
And if I might just comment on that, is that, I think that and I'm not trying to say in any way that there won't be restaurants that are impacted. There will be. Restaurants will definitely close as a result of this. And I think that it would be insensitive to say otherwise. That what I think is that, given the extraordinary measures being put in place to assist small businesses at this point, that's going to help a lot of them. And then given the length of time before the end of our next fiscal year, I think there is an opportunity that a lot of these, that a lot of the facilities that close, as has been said, Fairfield's a desirable place to open a food service establishment. I think a lot of these will come back online. Will all of them? Potentially not. But again, what we've seen in the past. In 08 and 09, lots of financial struggle, and we didn't see a big change in the number of restaurants or any significant changes in revenue that I recall.
Mr. Cleary, how much does each license cost?
So it ranges from, in ballpark terms, $200 to $500.
$200 to $500. Okay. Okay, so in the worst case scenario, what do you think the vacancy or the default rate would be for our restaurants over the course of the year?
Again, I don't.
It's a guess, right? You don't know, so we'll have to.
I really
we'll just have to
don't know.
$200 to $500 per license. All right, and go from there. Any other questions, Mrs. Charlton?
Yes, and again, Sands, I appreciate your comments, and I don't think this has anything to do with Fairfield per se or the desirability of Fairfield. I'll make a comment because I think this is really a theme throughout the revenue numbers. No one knows exactly what this next year holds, but I've heard a lot of forecasts from economists and others, and all the big banks have been out there with projections on the economy. And the most optimistic economic projections that I've heard have a robust recovery happening at the end of the second half of 2021. And that assumes things go well. So I think, when you think about what this next, fiscal year looks like going forward, that kind of leaves out next fiscal year out of a robust recovery. That's not to say that we won't open back up and that things won't slowly come back online, but, it's going to be a while before people are willing to sit in crowded restaurants with their friends and family, and all the federal assistance that's coming is going to keep some companies from going out of business, but it's not going to replace the revenue that they're losing. So as we look at this and as we look at other line items going forward, I think we have to keep that in mind, because I know for my business, I don't think any business out there right now is planning for this to be, this crisis that we're going through to have an economic impact of just a few months. And so I think, as we look at all of these line items and we think about what small businesses are doing, larger businesses, our universities, all of them are going to be cutting back. I think at some level we should probably make some baseline assumptions that cut across various categories. I'll leave it at that.
All right, thank you. Okay, I just want to close this discussion up and move on to the next department. Mr. Cleary, thank you very much, and good luck with what you're doing.
You're welcome, and thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, next item, Human and Social Services, and Ms. DeMarco. Ms. DeMarco, you still with us?
I am. Can you hear me okay?
I can. Thank you for being here.
Sure.
So this is on page 227.
Yep.
And we'll start with you, Ms. DeMarco. Any comments, thoughts about the budget that is being presented?
Yes. You'll see that there's a few items where we have a decrease, like advertising and postage. Those are pretty small decreases in our budget. And we do have increases, and those are personnel-based. One is for our part-time senior center director to become a full-time senior center director. And I do have a correction on the personnel summary that on the part-time current, second from the bottom, that senior center director, that is supposed to be the social services coordinator. We're not going to have a part-time director and a full-time director. It's just maintaining that position that we have, senior center coordinator. And also in our fees and professional services, there's an increase of $9,000, and that is for our exercise instructors. they make $30 an hour. The going rate is 75 to 100, and that is a reflection of increasing their rate of pay from 30 an hour to 50 an hour. And finally is an increase in my position, the salary for my position, which is low compared to like-minded towns or similar towns to ours. And that's it. Yeah, I'm happy to take questions.
Okay. Now the question is the center director, right, a new position?
Mm-hmm.
Are you
No.
Are you currently, as of right now, expecting that position to be filled?
No, we have a part-time senior center director for 19.5 hours. We were requesting that position go full-time because we've increased in the last 3 years from 2,000 members to 5,000 members. And we're providing many more activities and increased lunch program. It's much busier, and it was to reflect the need for additional staff in that. So it's not an empty position. It's not a new position. It's just increasing hours for that position, making it full-time.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, this is Jack Castani. Just a point of clarification, Mr. Marco. Where is that again?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. Which line item?
It is, if you go to personnel summary.
Yes.
Okay, so, I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong page. Page 229, that's what I have.
Right.
Okay, so there's full-time current is, our secretary is
Yes.
Bigelow Center Director. That would be that's the position that would be from part-time to full-time as Senior Center Director, and I'm Director of Human Services. So then as you go down, you'll see a second from the bottom shouldn't say Senior Center Director, that should say Social Services Coordinator, and that's the current position we have now. It's just, I just wanted to reflect the actual title of it.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, questions from the board? Mrs. Marmion? You're on mute.
Again.
You're on mute.
Oh,
Yeah, there you go.
I apologize. Oh.
You're good.
Okay. Okay. I have a question in terms of, again, what you're experiencing right now in town, as many of our seniors are obviously homebound. And I'm assuming, but I'd like you to tell us if your social workers are doing more home visits, and if you project that those home visits will continue next year, given the virus and the need to self-isolate.
At this point in time, we are on a skeletal crew. So we have 2 social workers rotating. You know, each day we have 2 social workers because we have a few working at home, but we're also trying to limit how many people are in the office. So we have 2 drivers, 2 social workers, and 2 senior center staff in each day. The social workers are not doing home visits right now. They were going on the buses and delivering the home-delivered meals to our seniors who are on our congregate lunch program or unable to cook or get to the store. But we have a lot of calls right now. There's a lot of very frightened residents with some great needs, not working, cannot afford to get groceries. So the social workers are actually doing a lot of case management, and we have CERT volunteers going out on the buses with our drivers. Our part-time senior center director is organizing right now the lunch delivery program. So we're delivering to 50 families. And we're also delivering emergency groceries once a week. So each of those 50 people are getting a lunch every day, a check-in every day. So we see them. They have to be there to receive the meals and a bag of groceries. So it's kind of a weird model right now in terms of what would be typical. You know, home visits still happen a lot. We partner a lot with the health department when it's a hoarding situation, and with police and fire when there's a police or fire report. But they're busy. The social workers are definitely busy. I can't say more home visits will be coming because of the virus, just as a safety issue. But you know, the calls are definitely increasing.
So I guess my question is, you're managing with the staff that you have to meet the need because you've adjusted what you're actually doing in terms of delivering services. Is that correct?
That is correct. We also we benefit from a outreach social worker from the community block development grant, who does a lot of our outreach and works with Operation Hope with their food pantry, and we've started a mobile food pantry. So it's kind of like an extra staff member that's covered by a grant.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Bateson?
No, I didn't have my hand up.
I got a message that, unless I missed it from before, Mr. Walsh?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Isn't the administration recommending that we get rid of the Bigelow Center director as part of their cuts?
I'm not privy to that, but that does make sense, right? In the current situation.
But isn't that what the cuts that we received from Mr. Bremer, or the administration?
Yes, that is part. Yes, that's part of it.
Mr. Bremer, that was discussed with Mr. Marco?
Mr. Bremer?
I'm sorry?
Yeah, this is Mr. Bremer, and I have to apologize to Julie, but we did make that suggestion to get to cut that position.
Okay. To cut it going from part-time to full-time.
That is correct.
Okay. Okay.
Where's the money in the budget for the part-time?
We currently have a part-time position.
Is that the social service director you talked about?
No.
I'm trying to figure out in the budget, where's the $19,000 or so that would pay that person if we don't put the Bigelow Senior Center director in here because there's been a recommendation by the administration to cut it.
We took one, put back in one, and netted out the $5,000.
Linda, can you get closer to the microphone? We can't hear you.
What is the question exactly?
Well,
the social case worker.
The question is where is Julie's person who's currently in the position, the $19,000? Where is that in the budget?
It's 19.5 hours. That's if you look at.
We put it.
I mean, the page 229 has the adjusted with the request for the new position, but presently it's a 19.5 hours, as is the social services coordinator one.
Yeah.
So
but I'm looking at 229, Julie, and I guess what I don't understand is I know you wanted to increase that person to a full-time person.
Right.
And that's in the budget. But if we remove that line as requested by the administration, then there's no money for that person.
No. If you look at the sheets and I'm sorry, this is Tom Bremer again. If you look at the sheets that we had sent out with our suggested adjustments, and the suggested adjustments in the scenario 2 COVID-19 impact adjustments, on the bottom right column, you'll see where we removed the full-time and we reinstated the part-time position.
Okay. So
that money's back in the budget.
How much of a savings is it net? I don't have that form in front of me, Tom. Somehow I lost your sheet. I don't have it in front of me. So what is then the net savings off the $66,267 salary plus the benefits that would go along with it? What is the net savings? Because that person wouldn't get health insurance anymore, right? If they're at
right. So we're at the part-time is 32. I'm sorry, I forgot my glasses. 32. Regular is 66. So you're looking at a savings of approximately 34, plus the health and the other benefits. So I'm going to give you a round number, about 50 grand. 50 to 55,000 be my guess.
Okay, what do you have as the savings on your form that I don't have in front of me?
the savings on the form.
When you say you're gonna get rid of the director, what on the savings that you?
Well, the director was 66,267, so
Yep.
we're saving that. We're adding back in 32,489.
Yep.
So we're looking at a savings of
38,000,
$24,000 on that.
yeah.
And then,
price of-
so I've got Linda talking in my ear, and it's gonna be about $38,000 total. Let's say $40,000 total savings.
Okay.
Within $1,000.
Okay.
But I think, hey, Mr. Walsh, let me just jump in for a second. I think where that position is on 229 is the senior center director, right, for 32,489?
Yes.
Okay. So that position is the one that was going to go to a full-time position?
Yes. That's what she
But,
said.
but it's still in the book, so I mean, I'm not.
No, but she was gonna change, she was gonna get something called a social services director.
Right, we have a
Okay.
social services coordinator, so, right, so it was just renaming that, but, yeah.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Walsh?
That's it.
That's it? Okay. Any further questions? Mr. DeWitt? No, okay. Okay,
Okay, just one more question, Jake.
Mr. Marco, thank you very much. Appreciate
My
you being
pleasure.
here. Okay, Public Works Administration, it's, Mr. Carey.
I'm here. How are you?
Doing just great.
Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you fine. So we will go to page, 201.
203.
Yep, 201 to 203. And any comments for us, Mr. Carey, before we ask a couple questions?
No, I just, we tried to, put in a decreased budget as much as possible, as you can see what's being presented here.
Yeah, we have, minus 4.75%, and that is due to a
Salary
new hire.
reduction.
It's gonna come in less, right? Salary reducement for the superintendent.
Correct.
Okay, any questions from the board?
I have a question.
Walsh?
Where do we stand with the hiring of the Director of Public Works? Because I presume, Mr. Carey, you're still being paid as the Conservation Director with probably some bump up for doing both jobs or something? But you're not getting both salaries, right?
Correct. No.
Is it the intent of the administration to continue to have Mr. Carey do both jobs for the next year?
That's not a question for me.
I know.
Mr. Bremer?
I'm not, I have no problems. I'm not complaining.
Yep.
Fine by me, whatever they want to do.
Mr. Bremer or Ms. Bassi, can you give us an update on the recruitment of the superintendent?
Hi, Jim, it's Brenda.
Hi,
Can you hear
Brenda,
me?
go ahead. I can,
Yeah,
go ahead,
I'm here-
thank you.
I'm here with these guys. Yeah, I interviewed two DPW directors before this all happened, actually three, and was considering hiring one. But then we had a pandemic, so it wasn't really top on my list.
Okay. So you have one, you have someone that you're interested in hiring for the position, you just haven't pulled the trigger yet because of the pandemic?
Right, it just was starting when I interviewed the three candidates.
Okay.
And then obviously our attentions were pulled in other directions.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Kupchak. Mr. Walsh, back to you.
Yes, the first select woman, do you plan on having that person hired, that position hired by July 1st? Jim,
I have to tell you, I haven't really thought about it. since I interviewed them. I was going to, and then all this happened, so I just haven't even, I have to tell you, I honestly haven't thought about it.
Okay, so you don't know whether they'll be hired by July 1st? Nothing here.
It sounds like, hold on there, Jack, hold on there. Okay, so it sounds like, that position is kind of in limbo right now, or the hiring of that position's in limbo right now, Mr. Walsh.
Right. So,
Hey, Jim, any other questions or follow-up? Mr. Testani?
I just wanted to shout out to Brian. I just think he's done a phenomenal job. I think we can hold off a little bit from hiring, from adding someone. That's great. It'd be weird not to have Brian around at every single meeting anyway, 24/7. So I seriously, I think he's done a phenomenal job, and I just wanted to thank him and express some gratitude.
My wife.
I would second that, Jack.
My wife is not happy with the amount of time I've been home during this.
Here, here.
I'm sure you're not the only one. All right, Mr. Mottola.
Yes. Mr. Carey, can you tell me, I thought I saw it somewhere here. You're getting an extra, is it a $20,000 a year to act in both positions? I thought I saw that somewhere. I just wanted to kind of know what the numbers are, that's all.
Right now, I'm being paid at the director's salary.
You are? Okay. So
yes.
You're being paid the 149 figure.
Correct.
Okay. I wasn't sure about that. All right. Thank you.
Having Doug Novak start too has been a huge help.
Having who?
Doug
Novak.
The superintendent, Doug Novak, but just having him down at the yard has been a huge help because I was running around a little bit crazy. So it's been very helpful having him there to kind of mind the store on a daily basis.
Do you have the, and I know you're just filling the position, do you have the qualifications under our job description and maybe state law to be the Director of Public Works?
I'm not a PE.
And that's what we required in Fairfield?
Yes, most towns have given that up, though, if you look across the board.
Okay.
Smaller towns like Reading, where the Public Works Director operates as the town engineer as well, they have retained that, but most other towns do not require a PE anymore.
Is that just in our job description or our charter provision? Do you know off the top of your head?
It's in the charter provision, and I'm not making a case for myself. I'm making a case for the town.
No. I'm making a case for you maybe, but I'm curious. Okay, thank you.
The truth of the matter is the Public Works position is more management than it is engineering.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I don't have any more questions. I'm sorry. We can't hear you, Jim.
Hello?
Hello.
Jim Brown muted.
We can still hear you, Brian. We can't hear Jim Brown.
Okay.
Brian, this is Tom Bremer. Can you do like an impersonation of Jim Brown?
I'll try.
Hey, you know,
I'd be better
what
with
it should say is, you should
Hey, I'm
say
back.
motion to adjourn meeting.
Yeah, you know what? Someone did that on purpose.
Can I second the motion to adjourn the meeting?
Yeah.
I think that was, where's Mrs. Kupchak? I think she cut my wire. Okay, I was saying, I'm sitting there saying, John, I think you lost your sound.
All right, mute the giggle.
That was great.
I said to John, I think you lost your sound, and then I'm realizing it's me. Okay, very good. So you asked your questions, Mr. Mottola? All right, we're moving on to the Public Works Operations. Mr. Novak, you're up. Thank you, Mr. Carey.
I'll be doing this one
Mr. Walsh,
too.
did you have another question?
No, I did not.
Okay.
Chairman,
Mr.
I'll
Carey,
be
you taking care of
doing
this?
this. Yes,
Okay,
Mr.
very
Novak's sick.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
Not with that.
Okay, that's good to hear. I mean, that part's good to hear.
So again, for the Public Works budget, we put in just a small decrease in the budget. We tried to maintain it as flat or a little bit below what we've done in the past. But I can answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, any questions from the board?
Yes.
Mr. Mottola?
So on page 211 of Public Works Operations, capital, if you had to cut some of those items, do you have any recommendations that you might want to put off for a year?
No, those were already all. That's what we cut before we even put it into the budget, because there was a talk about pulling this out and bonding for some of the other items that we cut off this list. So those, unfortunately, are all absolute necessities at this point.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further questions on this budget?
Sure.
Mr. Walsh?
Brian, I think you better start preparing a priority list on those capital items, because I think there's probably consensus on the board that we got to cut this budget. So as much as I think you need all of that stuff, I would start preparing, if you can get us a priority list after you speak, you and Mr. Novak can have a chance to have a meeting about it.
Yeah, again, those items there are, can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, so again, those items there are basically our reduced request after we kind of knocked it down at the request of, consultation with the boards and the administration.
Okay.
I mean,
all right.
So I mean, if you go through that, I mean, those trucks are replacing trucks that are barely roadworthy, and Jeff Cornwall in the garage has done a great job keeping things up and going. But the tractor flail mower, it's been rebuilt so many times that it's just done. And without that, we can't mow roadsides, so there's liability associated with that. And then
That's kind of the stuff I'm talking about. Like, we need to know, like, what is the, something like that. So it's a good thing to know. But, we could be making cuts that we not even know exactly what we're cutting, and it might not work for you. So, I think I'd put a priority list together, from the most needed to, I know everything's needed. So from the most needed to needed list.
Yeah. I mean, I can do that, but what I'm saying is that these trucks are replacing trucks in our fleet that we need to plow roads. Without them, we're not plowing the roads we need to do, and it will be, those are filling routes. If we don't replace certain trucks and they're not roadworthy, we're not plowing those routes. They'll have to put another truck to do double routes. So we're talking about a loss of efficiency and things like that. But I understand your request, and I'll talk with the administration, and we'll prepare something for you. But again, there was a list of 17 items before. We cut it down to 9.
Hey, Brian, can you send us a list of the trucks that that you plan on having them replace?
Sure.
Thank
So
you.
I did set, so just so you know, it's kind of it's a little confusing, but it is accurate, and I can walk you through it at some other point. But Jeff Cornwall, the fleet manager and the garage manager, he does have a capital spreadsheet that should have went out to you, and I believe it did go out to you, where it lists where things need to be replaced and what we're replacing with. But if you don't have it, I can get it out to you again.
Thank you.
The 3 4-wheel drive extended cab pickup trucks with snow plows, do we currently have 3 that these are replacing?
Yes.
I don't remember seeing that capital sheet, but I guess I'll look back at my emails.
I'll
Sure, we got
send it out
that.
again.
Ryan, obviously we're going through a tough time. You're one of the major departments, the operations of the Public Works. If we needed to cut 5%, where would we cut it?
I don't even know. I'd have to go back and look at that holistically. And honestly, those in my opinion, that's something I'd have to sit with Tom and Brenda and go through before I come back and give you that answer.
Okay. I mean, there's the kind of the tough decisions we might have to do. I mean, we might have to reduce the payroll line for the whole town side, and possibly on the board. We'll see, but by 3 to 5%.
I'll be honest. I mean, there's just not, it's a big number, but there is not a lot of fat on this budget, and a lot of it's baked into, the weather. And I just, if I could, there's, as there's companies that do futures and weather. I mean, if I could nail down what the weather's going to be like for the next year, I could tell you. But this year it didn't snow at all, and next year it might be one of the worst winters we've ever had. I don't know. So depending on the weather, things change dramatically.
Let's talk about contracted property services. You plan on relying on them to the same degree as you have always relied on them, or is there any type of change in philosophy on that?
We're having the Parks Department do a little bit more, but no, we still have a pretty large omnibus contract for grounds maintenance, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. We just went out to bid on that. We have a new contractor in place. They're going to be starting next week. We have a lot of town facilities, and they're very spread out throughout town. So
I heard that so we have a successful bidder on that. Has the contract? I thought I heard that the contract was going down pretty substantially.
It went down. It's not. I wouldn't say substantially,
Okay.
But they haven't started yet. We'll see how they perform.
Well, no. What's the contract that you have for them for next year? Did it go down?
It did go down. Yes.
Okay, so we need to know what it went down by, so that we can change this number.
It's not an apples to apples comparison. I mean, that is basically there's fixed costs in that contract, but there's also other things that they're asked to do at a unit price. So we basically have to go through the season to see what I could pin that cost down a little bit better.
You have to go through the whole season to see whether you could pin it down better?
I mean, it'll take a couple months. Yeah. Yes. I mean, that's a very reactive contract. So if we're lining more fields because the, soccer groups and stuff want those, there's more demand, then it will go up. If there's less demand, it will go down.
Okay. But with what's going on with the coronavirus,
So right
that.
now,
Yeah.
so this actually sounds counterintuitive, but right now our facilities are closed. We've never had an opportunity where our facilities will be closed through the months of April and May. You know, as far as, you know, it's not, I don't want to say this is a great thing, but for field maintenance, it's a huge opportunity to go in there and give our fields a much needed break. We actually have them doing preventative maintenance. So then when our facilities reopen, they'll be in better shape than they really ever have been. Because, you know, this is, for the fields, this is a well-needed break. You know, normally we're required to have the fields up and running by March 1st of every year, which they're still snow covered. You know, we never have the opportunity to have months or weeks of, in the growing season where we can go in there and actually, you know, go in there and overseed and, you know, aerate and tune everything up. So the contractor starting next week, he'll be going in and doing those type of work, but we don't have them lining the field, so there will be a little savings there. But again, this is a new contractor. We're watching them very closely. This is one of our largest bids in the department, and we need to see if they're up to the challenge.
What percentage did the contract go down from year to year?
I don't have the percentage in front of me right now. I can tell you, let me just pull, I can tell you what the contract is for right now. I can get that information for you. It's on my computer at work.
Okay.
So I can provide that to you. But again, it's difficult. It's not a unit. It's not an apples to apples comparison.
Okay. Can you explain when you send it to us why it's not, like, what's the differences?
Yes.
And
so
how
one thing is, so they dump garbage for us. So throughout the town parks. So if we put in a garbage can that wasn't there as part of the bid because someone requests it, or we have them, you know, come in and dump garbage more often, that means the price goes up. If the garbage isn't being dumped as often because of coronavirus, the bid will go down. But those are, you know, it's a tabular way to do it. So, you know, there could be savings, there could be increases.
Can you get us something on that? Because if contract's gone down, we kind of need to know that.
Yes.
You know, it's a $2 million number budget.
Well, yes, I will get that information for you, but there's also other contracts in that line item. That's not the only one.
Okay. Would you be able to break out, like, what percentage that contract is versus what the other ones are?
Yes. But if you look at the budget book or the expanded budget, you'll see the basically a breakdown of what's in that line item.
Anything else, Mr. Walsh?
That'll be it for now.
Okay, Marmion?
I have a question. It's along the same lines as Mr. Walsh's question, but it has to do with the snow plowing. I know sometimes we bring contracted snow plower equipment in and staff in from outside of Fairfield, and I'm looking at your capital items number 1, 4, and 9, all of which have to do with snow plow, you know, equipment of some sort. Is there any opportunity for you to provide us with an analysis of what we might save if we contracted externally for some of those services? Again, it's weather dependent. If it's a mild winter, we might not need those services, and we could save by not buying some of this equipment. Do you have that analysis, or would you be able to get that for us?
I can, but I'll tell you this right now, you can't do that because contractual obligations. If we send people home and they're not working so that we bring in a contractor, that will create a grievance. So the contractors are there to basically augment our operations, not to put people from Public Works at home.
Can we lease any of this equipment versus buying it?
That's something we could look at, but for I'd have to talk to the garage about that. You know, the question about, you know, if we bond that or put it in the operating budget, I mean, that's, you know, this isn't going to get any cheaper down the road. That's the only thing.
Right, but in the short term for the next year, to get us through, I'm just wondering if we could get some sort of analysis of leasing. I understand the contractual obligations, but leasing the equipment in the short term versus buying.
So I can do that, but for some of these things, there's just that's not an option for leasing. Material screener and stuff like that, there's no options for leasing. I know for a fact you can't lease a tractor with a flail mower. We've tried.
All right,
but I can do
perhaps
that for you, yes.
Getting your analysis, that would be great. Thank you.
Yes, yep.
Okay. Looks like Jim is muted again, but I think he's waving at me. So, it's Mary Charlton. Brian, just a couple quick questions. One,
sure.
On page 210, there's a list of personnel, and the first position listed there shows a roughly 24% pay increase. What would drive that kind of a pay increase for this individual?
I want to say contractual, but I'm not absolutely sure about that. That is quite a large increase.
Yeah, can you just double check on that? Because if any of that is not contractual, obviously it's
enter your attendee ID number.
Environment we you know can't be doing things like that.
I don't know if Linda Gardner would be able to answer that.
We're looking it up right now.
Okay. My other question is, and sorry if it's getting late, so sorry if I flipped this one and you didn't answer. No. We talked about the capital line item of $616,000. Sorry,
a step increase for longevity, 1.9.
Right. You can answer the question. We have an answer on the secretary. I'm sorry. Yeah. We have an answer on the secretary question.
Okay, it's coming through garbled, so I don't know if you can speak into the. I couldn't hear it. I heard just a garbled, faraway voice.
His answer was blah 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 blah.
All right, I'm going to ask my next question then. Maybe we can come back to that one.
Sure.
Did I miss it, or did we not talk about the fleet maintenance number? I know we
did talk about that.
We did? All right, because we talked about the $667,000. I missed that conversation.
They want me to come up with a list of what can be cut. And I thought with that list we were referring to the $667,000, which was the 9 items on page 211.
We've not talked about fleet maintenance.
So you're going to add the fleet maintenance onto that analysis.
I'm not quite sure I understand the question.
Okay.
Talking about line 57001. What is the fleet maintenance? It's a new line of $300,000.
Right. So we have under capital, we have capital outlay. We talked about $667,000. I thought that was the line item that you agreed to. You said everything was an absolute necessity. You were going to prioritize it anyway, but the line below that, I didn't think we touched on it.
So that fleet maintenance line item is the idea to get rid of all of the Crown Vic cars at Town Hall that are used by the inspectors and to modernize the fleet by leasing cars so that we can get rid of those Crown Vics and shrink the overall size of the fleet. Tom Bremer was working on this. It's a great idea. We have a lot of old cars that are beyond maintenance, and they're truly gas guzzlers. So there's actually even a lot of cars that aren't even driven for weeks at a time. So we wanted to modernize the fleet and shrink the fleet, so it would be more of a carpooling type of scenario for the town hall employees.
And so is that the leasing cost for a year? You said you'd be leasing. What is the $300,000?
Yes. So we don't know. Tom was looking at either leasing or purchasing the cars. I don't think that was determined yet, but it's something that needs to be done in a single type of shot, and over time it would produce savings to the town in the way of reducing our maintenance and just really having a more functional, smaller fleet of cars. Currently, the way it works is that once the police have basically taken their cars and driven them into the ground, we take them over at Public Works and basically convert them into town hall cars, paint them, and put them back in the road. But by that time, they're basically beaten up, and they're gas guzzlers. So the cops now are getting mostly SUVs because Ford is not really producing the old Crown Vics like they used to. So in the future, we wouldn't even be able to continue doing that unless we wanted to repopulate the fleet with a bunch of old SUVs, which would be even worse.
Where's the, where's? Okay, go ahead.
Can I clarify though, the $300,000, you said you weren't sure if that was the cost of leasing or buying. So how many cars is that, and is it leasing or buying for $300,000?
I will be honest, Doug Novak and Tom were handling this.
Yeah,
so I don't know if Tom can.
Yeah, this is Tom Bremer. I'm happy to talk about the fleet maintenance, which we have in our suggestions. We've moved over to bonding. What that basically is the town is populated with a bunch of cars that cost probably more money to keep them on the road than it is to get something new. We've got a lot of extra cars that we don't need, and my whole idea was to just get rid of all these old beat-up cars that we continue to spend money to keep them on the road and go with much smaller, fuel-efficient, more green, if you will, smaller cars, and change the way, right now there are a number of departments that have their own cars. And what I really am focusing on is I don't want to just replace them with a bunch of new cars. I want to replace them with a much smaller fleet and force the various departments to have to share the cars and that sort of thing. And at $300,000, the hope was that, of course, out of the fleet of cars that we currently have, there are going to be some that are relatively new and we can salvage. What I'm hoping to squeeze out of those is 15 to 20 cars. We'll buy them through the state, and we're not going to put a bunch of extra stuff on them, like when the police buy cars, they have to fit them out with lights and all that kind of stuff. We're not doing any of that. And we're just going to go with an entirely new system because the idea of the police turning cars over to the other departments, while it sounds good, it's really not good. And something I never thought of until I really looked into it was, what I learned and have been now told is like, the last place you want to sit is a car with 100,000 miles on it. That's an ex-police car because you don't know what's going on in that police car for 100,000 miles, and you really don't want to sit in it. So having heard all that and seeing all the cars that sit outside of Independence Hall night after night, taking up all these spaces, and nothing has changed. I was here 8 years ago, and I thought this is a terrible system. And when I came back, I saw a lot of the same cars sitting there, and I was like, we've got to change it. So my thought was to get a much smaller fleet, force people to share, and see how it goes. And frankly, I'm hoping with this program, I'd like to do it in 1 year. I'd like to finish the whole thing in that 1 year. I don't really believe 300,000 would be enough to do that, but it certainly would get us a far long down the road. So that's what I'm hoping to do with that.
Again, though, can you, I don't know if you answered the question, lease or buy, and how many cars? Did you say 15 cars for 300,000? Is that leasing or buying?
No, we're hoping to buy around that number. I'm hoping to get 15
per car for three. Wait, yeah. So this is to buy, not lease. Okay, so number one, got that.
Yeah.
And then this 300,000 would get us how many cars?
I'm hoping to have 15. I'm not sure how many I'm going to get. 12 or 13, maybe 14. Yeah,
I just, maybe we could get that would be $20,000 a car. I don't know what kind of cars we're buying, but I don't know if that's a reasonable number. So maybe we, I think we probably need, I'll defer to somebody.
If we could buy,
I would say we probably need more.
I will tell you, in buying fleet cars, that's not an unreasonable number based on just buying in bulk.
20 grand a car?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not outrageous.
I will say this from my perspective, though. There's a lot of us who have to go up to Hartford on a pretty routine basis, and the way the fleet is now, you can't take those cars. So we all end up using our own cars, which is fine, but it just is, you can't go out of town with them.
I appreciate that. So to get to what you envision, Tom, let's say you get 15 cars out of this money. What is the ultimate number you're trying to get to? Is this a 2-year program? What's the vision here?
Well, my vision is if I get 15 cars, I'm hoping to salvage another 3 or 4 cars. I'm thinking 18. I have been told by the people that I think know what they're talking about, that they probably need closer to 25 cars. But to be honest, I'm skeptical. So I thought, let me go small and let's see how it goes. And do I really need that many cars? Do all my departments really need that many cars? I'm not sure, but I'll know after 1 year. And if I need to buy another 4 or 5 cars, then I would come back and say I need another 100 grand or 110 grand, and then I'd want to be done. And my hope would be to not even talk about cars for 6, 7, 8, 9 years, that sort of thing. Do it once and get it done.
Okay, I'll defer to others, I guess. Obviously, it's a tough year to do that, but I defer to others. Thank you for answering those questions. Appreciate it.
No problem.
Thank you, Mrs. Carlton. Anybody else?
I have a question, but I'll defer to somebody else who hasn't asked me.
Yeah, is anybody? I'm looking through. I don't see anyone, Jim, with their hands raised, so go ahead.
All right. Mr. Bremer, I understand what you're trying to do, but I think a lot more work needs to be put into this as opposed to just throwing a number at it. I think you need to first start, culling the herd of this fleet that you don't need. So you have like 40 or whatever. Start getting rid of cars this year. Start working on a plan on what you work with the departments and figure this thing out. Figuring out I don't even understand what's happening with these SUVs when they're coming out of the police department. They seem to just disappear. I don't see them showing up on the lot as we were promised when we are leasing these things. So I think a lot more has to be done. I don't even know how many miles are being driven on these cars. Is it 5,000 miles a year per car? Is it 50,000 miles a year per car? I have no idea. But I think you have a lot to work on in regards to you don't even know how many cars you need yourself. And
Well-
I just think a lot of work needs to be put in, and a plan needs to be put together, and it needs to be presented at a full Board of Finance meeting where we can make decisions about this. But I think a good start would be to start culling the number of cars you have, taking the worst ones out of service, and start cutting that and showing us that you're serious about doing it, and start clearing some of those cars out for the ones that are not being used. And I would also like to see in that analysis, I mean, maybe it makes sense for us to pay mileage to employees to use their own cars in certain circumstances.
Exactly.
I'm not against that either.
Yeah.
I mean, but that analysis needs to be done with this entire program.
Okay. Mrs. Marmion?
I agree with both Mr. Walsh and Ms. Charlton. I think we need better analysis, and I think this is a tough year. I think it's a good idea. It makes a lot of sense, but it may not be the year for it. And I also think I'd like to see some analysis of the maintenance costs that go into maintaining the current fleet of cars, so that we could do a cost-benefit analysis of what we're spending from a maintenance standpoint, and then show it against this investment of $300,000, just so we can have a better sense of what this current fleet is costing us and what we might save by investing in the fleet. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Marmion. Any other questions on this, Mr. Mottola?
Yes, thank you. The only question I had is I know you mentioned $300,000. You were thinking about bonding it, but it's listed here under the budget request. Is the $300,000 though? Is that part of the $15 million and change, or is it not part of that? On this document, you know what I'm saying? On the budget document.
Which budget document are you referring to?
So I'm looking
Tom,
at
he's
page
talking-
208 of the budget book. The fleet maintenance, $300,000. Is that $300,000 part of the entire $15 million total?
Yes.
It is. Okay. Thank you. That's all I needed to know. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mottola. Any other questions on this budget? Okay, seeing none. Thank you.
Doing revenue
Thank you, Ms.
first? Are we doing the revenue also?
Well,
Yes.
yeah,
No.
page 19, I don't think there's, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. All right, Mr.
So
Carey, on the
I can
revenue
answer.
side.
Yes, I can answer these questions quickly because we don't have a lot of revenue in the department, and what we do have will not go down because it's tied to road opening permits. And as you can tell by driving around town, Southern Connecticut Gas is very busy, as is Aquarian, so they have no intention of stopping next year. They're still upgrading their mains, so that should not go down.
Okay, questions on revenue? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Carey.
I will be here hanging out if you need me, still.
Okay, thank you. I'm having trouble hearing, so I might hang up and call back in. For the board, let Mr. Calabrese know that we're gonna do culture and rec another night, okay? So what we'll do is get through Public Works.
Okay.
And so we're at WQCA.
Can we talk to?
Sorry, Jim.
Page 291.
On the Public Works revenue, are we going to talk about these, like, solid waste and these other departments, or were those comments just relating to, the 41,000 of Public Works?
The solid waste we'll get to.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna have to hang up again and call back in. So let's go to WPCA, page 291. Mr. Norton, you on the line?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Hello?
Go ahead, please. Yes, go ahead, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
I'm having a little bit of trouble, but you're fine, so go ahead.
Okay. As you can see from the submitted budgets, it's a small increase this year because of a lot of equipment that's aged and needs to be replaced. And some contractual obligations are basically the increases.
Okay, questions for Mr. Norton? Mr. Walsh, did you have a question, you said?
No.
No. Any questions for Mr. Norton? Okay. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, we're on to building, page 212.
Yes. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, I
Hello?
can.
Oh, great. I'm having trouble with my computer, so pardon me. I'm on the phone, and I just had a little bit of trouble. So when you're ready, I can just start.
We're ready, thank you.
Everybody's ready. Great. So you'll see that the one big change for a request from me was a part-time employee. That employee would cover my the blight and condemnation. I wanted to just let everybody know that the blight is handled by all three departments: fire department, health department, and building department. So it takes up a tremendous amount of our time, as well as an administrator from the health department. The secretary does all the administrative bookwork for that. So it takes up a tremendous amount of time. And given the amount of work that we've had in the past and are looking forward, we would, or I think all three departments would appreciate if we could, hire a part-time to do most of that work for us, and as well as the administrative. I would add, too, that it would be of no cost to the town. The blight fines, which presently go into the general fund, would be used to pay for that employee. So I don't know if anybody had any questions on that, but it's been something we've been looking for some time.
So, Mr. Conley, what do you think the blight inspector's revenue would be? At least 35 or more than that?
So the revenue, we collected this past week. We collected a check for, I believe it was $56,000. We're probably owed another $25,000 or $30,000. So it seems to run in that. And again, it runs, some years are more, some are less. But certainly, I believe we would be collecting more than the cost to us, as well as giving the fire marshal's office, who should be doing other inspections, as well as the health and building department. So that's myself and the health director. So it's takes a lot of our time, and a lot of them are repeat inspections, and just way too much time for us to be doing.
Okay, thank you. Mr. DeWitt? Mr. DeWitt? Mr. DeWitt?
Yes, thank you, Chris DeWitt. So,
Hi, Chris.
it's hi. It's interesting that you say, you know, we'll get that $35,000 back in fees, but in the building department, I'm not seeing it. Under penalties, you're only talking about a revenue of $10,000. Are you saying that $10,000 line under revenue should be $35,000 plus?
So in the past, we've taken more. We've just always given a $10,000 simply because we don't know how much. I'm getting repeats on my phone here. I'm sorry. I have to move it away. We've always put in $10,000, but it has always exceeded that level. So it's kind of an unknown because we don't know how much blight there'll be. But as I said, this past week we collected a check for $56,000, plus we're owed maybe another 25, 30,000. Now that might come in when they sell the property, or it might come in next week. You never know.
Yeah, ever remember hearing anything about not having a blight officer and losing all that revenue? That's really surprising to me. And so, okay, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. DeWitt. Any other questions on expenses?
Yes.
Okay, seeing none, let's go to revenue.
Jim, I said yes.
Oh, go ahead.
I had my hand up, too. I had my hand up, too.
I see that.
I couldn't see your hand, Jim.
Now, that's up to me to see it. Go ahead, Jim.
Tom, what kind of person takes this blight inspector part-time job? Is it a building person? Is it an retired fire person? Like, who's the expert that you try to find to do that job?
Yeah, good question. It's probably somebody with a retired person, probably somebody we would have to train, probably somebody that had some experience in building. It's truly not you don't have to be you don't have to be all that bright. You just have to understand the limits of what the blight is, and have to be able to take pictures and present those photographs to us. So he would not be determining whether it was blight. He would bring that to the blight meeting. So we would send him on a mission, send him to a location, and have him take pictures and, bring them back to us, and we would determine. So we would actually, at our meetings, make the determination. It's just all the footwork that has to be done, Jim. And, and again, repeat footwork. So somebody might say, the job has been cleaned up, the property is clean, but then would require us to go back again. So we go back again, there's another pile of tires there, which is very similar to what we do all the time. So it's kind of repeat performance. So again, something that doesn't take a lot of intellect to do. So probably a retired person.
These are not good job description things I'd put in.
Yeah, I'm looking for the right words here, Jim. After 11:15, I stumble around a little.
They don't have to be highly specialized.
Hey, no, we're looking for a retired attorney, maybe,
I might need all your requirements, Tom.
Extra time on his hands. No, honestly, we're thinking of a retired person, to be truthful, somebody that can just, spend some time, go out and take pictures and repeat performance, Jim.
Tom, are you fully staffed now?
Yeah, you're right.
No, I am not fully staffed now.
Okay, do you need to hire somebody? going on?
Yeah, we're going to need we were looking for a full-time building inspector. And then a couple of things have happened. We had some good candidates. We hire at a very low rate. Bridgeport hires, their starting pay is $12,000 more than our starting pay. So it's hard to give somebody somebody with experience, and we hire people who are multidisciplined, so we don't have to send two people out to the same job. We hire inspectors who understand electrical, mechanical, and the building trade. And those people are harder and harder to come by. And again, I might add that Bridgeport hired, starting pay is $12,000 more. Groton's starting pay was $8,000 more. So it was hard to find somebody. I found the right guy, but he was, not pleased with the pay. So it just kind of carried on, and then this pandemic kind of kicked in, and here we are. So long story short, I am short a full-time inspector.
I just don't understand why we're cheaping out on our pay when your department's making $3.2 million worth of revenue.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. I appreciate that, and I don't know why either. I can't. It is difficult at that pay to hire experienced people. So I guess I could hire somebody with no experience, but if you've ever driven with me or seen the work we do, the job is a job of experience. We coordinate with the fire marshals. We train with them. They train with us. And it really is a job you can't just pick up a book and learn. It's truly an experience.
It just seems like we seem to be making more and more on building permits with the universities, which are kind of, I would believe, are kind of quite complicated buildings with anything from dorms to now a hockey facility at Sacred Heart and a new Fairfield University gymnasium that these things hold thousands of people. It seems as though we should be trying to pay on the higher side, and especially if they're multidisciplinary. I don't understand it.
Yeah, Jim. I don't understand it either. It's again, more and more difficult to find anybody in the trade. All the people doing this are older, including myself. Tradesmen, the average electrical tradesman is in his late 50s. It's not a field. I'm hoping maybe more and more younger people will get into it, but it's truly a field of older people. So, these jobs have become more complicated. You'll see multi-story, multi-family buildings going in, and they're code-wise, they're quite complicated, as well as the dormitories that are going in at Sacred Heart, Fairfield U. And when you're looking at doing the inspections and the code review on these, they become very complicated. You have to really see through that building and understand how that building is built to do the inspection and to understand the code issues that are involved in them. So yeah, it's difficult to find people, Jim.
Well, I mean, because we're not a town like, say, Easton, where there's no, like, commercial buildings. It's like... Yeah, Jim, they have no commercial buildings. Easton has one building inspector. He does 3 inspections a week. We're doing, we do probably in one day 20, 25 inspections in a day, Jim, across the board with my inspectors that I have. So, all right. We need to, again, these larger buildings, multifamily buildings that are being built right now. It's the big trend right now, Jim, to do them. So, yeah, I need experienced people.
Yeah. Hey, Jim, I just want to jump in and say that when I met with all the department heads, I agreed that it was extraordinarily low and it wasn't competitive, and we agreed to put in the extra money for Tom's budget for the inspector.
So where did that go
Thank
up?
you.
I'm looking at the regular payroll, and regular payroll is going down by 2%. So where's the new money coming in?
So I'm not sure who the question to, Jim. Is the question to me, the 2% loss is really from hiring, so the gentleman that left was at the high scale, I would be hiring at the low scale.
Why wouldn't you be hiring at the middle scale for somebody more experienced?
There's some union issues here. We're grades lower than many of the other departments. So we should be, grade-wise, we should be 2 steps above, in my opinion.
Oh. That
would bring us up to where we need to be. So absolutely, Jim, we're underpaid.
Well, the problem becomes, I mean, am I wrong? If you guys don't have enough building inspectors, because we're losing out to Bridgeport by $12,000 an inspector, and so people are just, I mean, that's a lot of money. Then aren't we doing like less inspection, less work kind of getting done, and we're making less money?
Yeah, I couldn't quantify in those regard, Jim, but I could say that we certainly would lose something in our inspections and our code review. So we have to more or less run through our jobs. When I send an inspector out in a 3-hour day, you know, he's going out, you know, at 11 o'clock, coming back at 3:34. He's sometimes they're doing 9 and 10 inspections a day. It's a tremendous amount of work, driving from point A to point B. And the only reason I get it done, Jim, is because I have a dedicated staff, and they're all multidisciplined. What they don't know, we will teach them. But truly a dedicated staff and a very good secretarial staff as well, who can understand how to send the right person to the right job. But yeah, we should. I need a full-time guy.
It's like one of the highest revenue generating departments in town. I mean, every company that I've worked for, the people who make them, you know, you bring in the most money, you're making, you know, the money. So I just don't understand. But hopefully,
I agree with you, Jim. I agree with you, Jim. I think we should definitely invest
and I would add
money
to
generation.
Yeah.
Okay, you know what? I think
woman
we
has
all
actually agreed,
are making the same point. Tom, hold on 1 second. I think we're kind of making the same point. Is there anything else, or I'd like to go to revenue?
No, the only other thing I did ask for some in capital. You'll see I asked for some cabinets. We might change from cabinets to some chairs. Some of the chairs are beat up that we use. Everything we own is 1962. Beg, borrow, and steal. I would absolutely implore everybody to come into my office and see the shambles that we work in. It's less than safe, less than usable for the type of work that we do. So I just absolutely invite everybody in to see how we're going to function. I'm not going to be able to function given the 6 foot social barrier, social distancing that we have. My offices are stacked on top of each other, and each inspector has to move across the other person to get to the outside. It's outrageous, and to be honest with you, I'm going to start working in the hallways. It just doesn't work anymore. So, but so anyway, that's that.
All right, thank you.
We want to go to
revenue?
Let's
go to page 15. Yeah.
All right. Let me just just revenue-wise, I just want to add here today's. I did a quick report. We are today with revenue for 4/08/2020. We're at $2.9 million in grand totals for revenue. So we have, and we will exceed last year's numbers, or the projections for this year's revenue. So I put in a fairly good sized number for year 21. I have, believe it or not, I believe we're going to come very close to that numbers. I'm sure everybody will argue with it. We have a tremendous amount of solar energy coming in right now. It's very, very strong. People feel very strong about it. I have on my desk 8 to 10 knockdown houses that are still, contractors are still buying houses and knocking them down for speculation. So when I see those kind of numbers and those kind of residential small businessmen who are still buying houses, they feel strong about the market. So I feel that my numbers are still good. I spoke to representatives from Fairfield U. I met with Fairfield University and walked through their one of their big projects. They're presently moving forward with it because they have the money. And I spoke to Sacred Heart, and they feel as though they're going to move forward as it stands right now. So I would say that my revenue is going to be fairly strong next year.
Okay, I'm sure there are some questions about that, Tom. But you've talked to the universities, you're saying, and you've talked to small business people, and you've talked to people in real estate, and you feel good about 2021?
Well, again, I feel not just talking with people. Fairfield's sort of a microcosm of for construction anyway. Small businessmen, guys that maybe knock 2 houses, 3 houses down a year. As I said, they're buying houses and knocking them down. If this were the end of the world kind of a market, they would not be purchasing, $400,000 properties and spending knockdown money on it and then rebuild. So again, I in my opinion, and speaking with people, although there's a sense of uncertainty out there, they're still doing it. And I took several smaller projects from Sacred Heart just yesterday. Revenue on those were probably $10,000. So they're still, again, things can change tomorrow, but they're going forward with projects. As the people that I spoke with.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Marmion?
Yeah, hi, Tom. Sheila Marmion.
Hi, how are you?
How are you?
I am well, thank you.
In terms of Sacred Heart, I had mentioned earlier in our meeting that President Patillo at Sacred Heart University had sent faculty and staff an email with a financial update. This was March 27th. And what he said, and I'm just going to read it to you because I have it in front of me. He said, "We are not starting any additional budget-funded capital construction projects. Some projects that are funded by non-operational dollars will continue." But basically, it appears that he's going to, or the university is where they're committed, they're already committed. They're already in the process of building. But any new projects, they're not presently moving forward to, given some of the financial constraints from the pandemic. So that's one thing. I guess, again, you're in contact with people every day. This was, so I'm interested to hear your conversations. That may have to do with existing projects. I'm not sure. I guess my question is, how big a chunk, when I'm looking at these revenue from the different permits, how big a chunk of that, just percentage-wise, do you think is coming from a Sacred Heart University? Because I know that they are, and I appreciate what you said in terms of the solar energy and the knockdown houses, and I know we have a lot of construction in town going on, but what does Sacred Heart kind of represent in your budget for next year in terms of revenue? Just approximate. I'm just curious.
Yeah, I'm going to say between Sacred Heart and Fairfield University, we're looking at 35 to 40% of the budget comes from those. And I wanted to comment about the ongoing projects. For any of these larger projects, these are projects that take a year to two just to get onto the plate. So anything that is already budgeted for them, I believe they're going to go forward with. We talked about the hockey rink, which will be next year's money. That's presently still on the table. Again, this is stuff that they believe. It's the people that I speak with. Again, I get it. They may not want to start new projects. They have a grandiose plan for the GE property. But again, their projects take a year to 2 years just to get in motion. So I believe anything they had in motion for this upcoming fiscal year is still on the table. Again, you may have better information than I do. I'm not speaking with Patella or their fiscal officer, but people under them I am.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I just, in addition, just to give you some perspective, the universities are, they're in a very tight situation. I mean, they're taking salary reductions. They're doing hiring freezes. There are no merit increases next year. They're suspending the retirement plan matches. So that's in addition to saying that they're not going to move forward right now with, some of their capital projects. So just, it's not just the building, it's everything that they're looking at. But so you said 35 to 45% of your estimated permits are made up by the universities, the two universities in town?
I would say so. Correct. I would say something like that. Yeah, and I don't have an exact figure, just kind of off the top of my head, thinking about what we do. Those are the big projects that we take in every year. So it's quite a sum of money.
Yeah, and I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but I think, I would probably err on the side of being more conservative in terms of those revenue projections, given what's going on. Just my perspective.
Yeah, so I've always done that, by the way. I've always tried to back it down a little bit because I'm a little more conservative. And, I could certainly take another look at it and dig deeper with some of these people. I would certainly be willing to do that. I haven't had an opportunity to really sit down with anybody. These are phone calls. Normally, when I do projections, I will actually sit down and have a luncheon with them and talk to them about projects. It's just been sort of hectic. I have to rethink my business. There's no more walk-in permits, and how we do our inspections are, and our permitting has cost a tremendous amount of time and energy and frustration from me. So it's a lot more work than before.
Thank you for that offer. That would be very helpful for us as we go through the month of April. But let me go to Mr. Charlton, and then I'll go to you, Mr. Mottola.
Thank you. Can you give us some perspective on the rest of the revenue? If 35 or 40% roughly, I know that's an estimate, comes from the two universities, what does the rest look like in terms of residential housing versus other categories of building?
Yeah, so there's a lot of categories in there between swimming pools and renovations, kitchen renovations. My opinion is this is going to put people into renovation kind of mode for some of these homes where some of these, they want to put money back in. You may be staying in your house more often, so they want to put more luxurious kitchens and things like that. We see a lot of big number kitchens coming in. And I mean, $100,000 additions just for kitchens. So not even additions, but they're renovations. And even in Fairfield, that would be considered a median renovation on a kitchen. So people spend a lot of money on things like that, basement renovations, things like that. So there's a lot of smaller work that adds up fast. Right now, during this these past months, I'm not going to say I'm busier than ever. I'm busier because it's a lot more footwork for me, but every day I'm taking in permits. Every single day I'm sitting down and doing multiple permits, 10, 15, 20 permits. I truthfully thought it would just dry up and turn to nothing. It's a huge burden on me to sit and do these permits the way we do them today. But they're still out there and they're coming in hot and heavy. So.
Yeah, no, that's helpful. I guess part of what I wonder, and back to Sheila's comment, well, two things. One, I think the memo she referenced from Sacred Heart was pretty clear. They said they were, in addition to all the other actions they're taking, reducing executive pay. I think the president said he took a 50% pay cut, reduced the pay of senior management by 15%. They said that they're not going forward with budgeted capital projects. They said they will go forward with some projects that have external funding, so philanthropic, presumably. And if you think about what's going on at the universities, they essentially cut a semester short, had to refund room and board partially to students.
Sure.
I think there's some question whether they're even going to have a semester in the fall. There is very likely, well, I'll use Dr. Fauci's words. He said the word inevitable when it came to a resurgence of the virus in the fall. So there's just a lot of uncertainty out there, and it's not surprising to me that they would be deferring capital spending because every business is doing that. Virtually every business is doing that right now because of liquidity issues and everything else going on, unemployment. So I guess it's just hard for me to wrap my head around the fact that we're going to continue to see this kind of revenue. I think what I see, and maybe this doesn't apply here broadly with things like home renovations, but what I'm seeing in a lot of sectors is that companies are still doing okay at the moment because they're kind of running through their current pipeline of business. I mean, they're finishing things and they're dealing with business that has started, but the pipeline of new business is kind of drying up. And so a lot of businesses in a number of sectors are looking forward to a more difficult second half of the year, more difficult 2021 as they now have to rebuild that. So I feel like even if this money is coming in, it just seems like it's got to catch up with us at some point. And I don't know how we can continue, and be completely immune to what's going on with the economy, the job losses, how none of that is going to impact the level of building, investment in homes, et cetera. It just, somehow it doesn't feel right. And I wonder if you have any perspective as well based on the trends we saw in previous recessions or previous downturns.
Yeah, I don't know about, I didn't run the department for very long. I've only been here 6 years. I'd say when Sandy hit, I thought for sure that the beach area would die. The beach area turned into the hottest market in the whole town. I can only tell you what I have a gut feel for. I have never tried to overestimate. I've actually underestimated every single budget I've ever put in for revenue. Underestimated. It's always brought in more. I'm certainly willing to sit back and look at it again. I'm just super optimistic about the federal money. When things start to get better, I just think it's going to start up again. I don't see it slowing down right now. I see a little bit of slowdown, I will admit to that, but I'm still taking permits. And I really didn't think that would happen.
I think this probably has a little tail on it when it comes to building, and that was my concern. And then the recovery is going to lag a little bit as well. So yeah, maybe just give that some thought because again, if we're looking at the kinds of unemployment numbers that we're looking at, just macro, what's happening in the economy, 20, 30% unemployment rates is what we've got economists and banks talking about. yeah, I don't know how many people are going to be doing $100,000 kitchen renovations in that kind of environment, but I suspect that between that and the universities, this has got to catch up to us at some point. So if I don't know if we can look at any history or anything, but again, I suspect it may have a tail. So I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thank you. I was feeling good a few minutes ago. Now I'm not feeling so good. No, I'm only kidding. I really feel optimistic here. So, but I will take a look at those numbers again, and if need be, I'll make adjustments to it.
Okay, thank you. John Mottola?
Hi, John. Real quickly, hi, Tom. Take another look. I just wanted to clarify something. So to date, we're about $2.9 million for revenue. Is that what you said earlier?
Yes, correct. Correct, $2.9 million.
So that would be, we're $200,000, almost $200,000 over what we projected for this current year's budget. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, sir.
2.74. So what do you think by the end of the fiscal year where we're going to be? Yeah. So do you have any idea at the end of the fiscal year where we'll be?
Yeah, we're going to be at $3.2 million, $3.4 million. I'm $3 million. Yeah, we're going to take some more money, and I still see it coming in. Yeah, okay. Yeah. I hate to say that because I'll have to listen to the finance department tomorrow telling me that I underestimate all the time. So, it's not good for me. Yeah, no, money is still coming in, John.
3.4. Okay. Well, that's what I wanted to know.
Yeah, we're going to take more money in. It hasn't stopped. There hasn't a significant slowdown. Like I said, I thought it would, and it hasn't.
What I would ask Jim Brown is obviously when we vote on this budget as late as possible, we get those updated figures. Very important to me to see where we are. That's it. Thank you, guys.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to go to Mr. Walsh. Just want to let the board know that I'm getting a note from Mr. Kelly that at 12, and the public know, that at 12:30, if the meeting goes beyond that, he has to basically restart the meeting. So as we get close, it's almost heading into midnight now, so we'll see if we can get through this by 12:30. But if not, and that's only because the meeting length, there's a meeting length limit with WebEx, and then he would have to restart. Just so everyone knows, we'll see where it goes. Mr. Walsh.
Tom, all that stuff is really good to hear. I was questioning whether, because the town had that was one of the numbers when they supplied us with changes that they were saying that a bunch of things might go down 20% in revenue, and your department was one of them. But it was one I really questioned because I don't know whether your department really falls into that because of the plans that Sacred Heart and Fairfield U have. And, it's interesting, these universities' finances are completely different, like budgeted capital. They're not going to spend budgeted capital. These universities don't spend money on their buildings. They raise money from their alumni.
Correct.
So I get it from my own university. Every single project, they want money from me. Or, they do naming rights, they do whatever. So they don't build stuff like the Fairfield U gym is not going to be paid for by Fairfield U. It's going to be paid for by Fairfield U alumni. And the money's going to be raised prior to the project starting. Each one of these projects, they go out and raise the money through private donations from their alumni and also other supporters of the university prior to these projects starting. And that's why they're not going to stop. So when they say they're going to put a stop to budgeted capital, that's really not a lot of money. And it's none of these projects that we're talking about. Same thing with the hockey rink. That's going to go forward. That's not going to be part of budgeted capital for them. So it's good to hear that they're planning on going forward with these projects. The other area I want to talk to you about, are you seeing with what's going on with this COVID virus and everything that's going on with it, do you see that there are any type of permits that you thought you'd be getting in but might be pushed into the next budget cycle on July 1st?
You mean like from the universities?
Yeah. Like something was going to be pulled, you thought by the end of this year, and now you're being told, oh, you know what, we'll probably pull that in July or August.
Well, exactly with the hockey rink. That's what they're talking about. They're pushing it out a little bit because they have some other projects, and just as you said, Jim, they're looking to raise more money. They don't start these projects unless they have a good sum of money, cash in the bank. All of them are, as you say, somebody has a name on them, and School of Business is somebody else's name. So most of them are done that way.
Yep. I think most of them are done that way. I mean, with my own university, they never pay for any of the buildings. It's like they're all paid for by alumni and other donors. And so I don't see that money drying up. I see it more, these projects are down the road too far at this point in time. So that's good to hear. And it's good to hear about some of the other stuff that you're still seeing permits, despite the fact that this virus is keeping everybody inside, that they're still coming in. So I kind of feel kind of confident with your numbers, especially when I'm starting to see what last year's budgeted revenue was and how much you're going to surpass it by. So I'll just leave it there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right,
thank
thank you, Mr. Walsh. You know, Mr. Conley, we're more likely than not later in April. We'll probably bring you back to see what you found, if you found anything new with the revenue, or at least want to hear from you one way or another.
Great. Yeah, I'll have more time to, I'll hopefully have more time to spend, researching it, especially with the universities. Okay. And I'll have a better feel from smaller projects as well. This is all too new for everyone.
Yeah, because more likely than not, we're going to add a night, and we'll invite you back and just have a little chat about what you found out. So thank you for being here.
Yep, thank you.
And appreciate your insight. Okay, we're going to go to engineering, page 216. Have Mr. Hurley. Mr. Hurley, you still with us?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes. I can, thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Bill Hurley, engineering manager. Figuring it was going to be a difficult year even before this COVID-19. The engineering department kept most of the accounts at a 0% increase. We already didn't request capital. We reduced the rental and storage. And recently we were informed that the overtime earnings and the motor vehicle fuel have been recommended for reduction. So I'm just here now to answer any questions. So.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Hurley?
Mr. Hurley, what were you told that you were recommended that overtime earnings were going to go down to?
I believe they were going to bring it down to 3,000.
Okay, any further questions?
No.
Okay, let's go to,
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Hurley.
Right, Mr. Hurley, page 1. Does someone have a question? Did I miss someone? Okay, page 187 then. Any questions? A little bit of a decrease, 1.3%. Any questions on street lights?
Nope.
Okay, Mr. Hurley, did you have anything else to report? If not, it looks like you're good to go.
Okay, thanks. I was just hanging around for the street lights, usually at Bowman, and I try to address that. All right, thank you. Have a good night.
Can't hear you.
Jim, I can't hear you. Anybody hear Jim?
No.
No. What's next on the agenda? Maybe we can.
Solid waste and recycling.
Solid waste and
Page 231.
There he is.
There you go, Jim.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
It drives me crazy. Okay, let's go to page 231. Mr. Zabruski, you with us?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead, please.
Okay, great. All right, basically the increase on my budget was the contractual agreements, or contractual for the trash and recycling. That's it.
Okay, questions?
One question.
Yeah, I had a question.
Go ahead, Lori.
What is included in the line item, contract and property services?
It's the electronic recycling, environmental controls, janitorial services, recycling operations at the transfer station itself, the trash, and the yearly PC scale contract support.
That's gone up, that's showing an increase of 18.5%, if I'm looking at this right.
Correct. Correct.
Can you just, did I miss something? What's driving that increase?
We had a bid go out, and basically what happened was one contractor put in the bid, and the bid increased substantially.
For which services? I'm sorry.
It was the, hold on one second, let me just flip this over. It was the transfer station operations.
And what are the transfer station operations contract? What is that out of, you mentioned a number of different services that are included in this number. How much is the transfer station operations out of this budget line?
$647,000.
Okay, so
$328.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, do you have any other questions? Lori?
I do not, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
Sure.
Mr. Walsh?
All right. Mr. Zabruski, how are you tonight?
Oh, been better.
So, you've been better? Okay. That's not good.
No, it's all right.
Okay. So the contracted services, the primary, that's the one that went up 18.5%. Most of that is that one contract to run that whole area, to run that
yes.
operation?
Yes.
Okay, because only one person bid on it.
Correct.
Oh. Have you looked at, could we run this operation ourselves?
We could, but we would have to buy payloaders, tractor trailers. It would be super expensive. That's why everybody else, all the other contractors, shied away because Enviro had all the equipment.
Okay. So the other players don't have this? How do the other towns do this? Are all the other towns getting this kind of increase?
Some are, but some other contractors had the trucks already there. They already had it contracted. This was a multi-town contract that Fairfield, Westport, Trumbull, Trumbull stepped out. No, I'm sorry. Trumbull, Easton, Monroe, Fairfield, Westport, and Milford went into a contract together to try to solicit a better deal. And unfortunately, certain contractors just didn't bid in Fairfield. So Westport and Fairfield got the same contractor.
Okay.
And we've all gotten increases. I don't know what Trumbull did because they've got another contractor. I believe it's City Carding.
Did the contractor tell you what was driving his number? Like his increased costs? I mean, just a very large increase.
Yeah, he was. We can give you a copy of the contract. He's got it all line item out. There's new equipment, upgrades on the transfer station. We're going to do upgrades, but he's going to maintain the upgrades. He's got new equipment he's buying.
And how long is our contract?
5 years. And also the contract. Hello? Sorry.
We're tied to this contract for the next 5 years?
Correct.
Your fees and professional services line, what does that line consist of? It's gone up by almost 5.4%.
It's hazardous waste operations, hazardous waste to households, police, special police, the waste disposal fee for Wheelabrator, the hauling fee for the trash,
okay, and
propane tank recycling, and a bunch of fire extinguishers and the single stream recycling fees and the disposal.
Okay, so that's pretty much most of like how much it costs to get the garbage out of here and all that stuff.
Correct.
Okay, and are we under a new contract there? Why has it gone up by almost 4%?
Well, the single stream recycling has gone through the roof. Okay. We were getting a revenue, and now it's tanked.
Okay, so, and that's all the plastic stuff you talked to us about?
Correct.
There's no place to sell it?
Correct.
Okay, it's better for people to just throw that in the garbage now, I suppose, because it's not going to be recycled, right?
Well, they're supposedly sitting on it. Eventually, the market will turn around.
But for right now, I mean, people in town could just throw the plastics right in the garbage can, right? And it doesn't matter because you're not recycling it.
We are, and we have to by law.
You have to by law, but it's not being recycled into any. Correct?
As far as I know, whatever we're sending to recycling is being recycled.
But I thought we talked about it, that China's not taking it and probably never did. They probably just dumped it in the ocean. And
not in the ocean. They would dump in their possibly landfills. But from what we understood, materials were going out and being recycled.
And they weren't.
It was a market game. We don't know. We assume that they weren't, because I think the system got sloppy and they were making so much money on the recycling that the system got sloppy and greedy, and they were just taking it and picking and choosing recyclables.
I don't know. Based on the last conversation we had, it didn't seem like any plastics anywhere were being recycled. There was no marketplace for it.
Well, no. I mean, honestly, the plastics, if you take those to the incinerator and incinerate them, they have a higher BTU value, so it's probably better environmentally to incinerate them and generate electricity than it is to...
That's what I thought, yeah.
Recycle, yeah. But you still have to recycle according to the state law, there's certain products. And if the state were to relax those laws, which we should push, then it would be better off for us. But then again, trying to change the general public's ways on recycling is
Why have your overtime earnings gone up by over 100%?
we pay the public works guys during our haz waste days and our time we have to work up in New Haven, our volunteer days, that we haven't had a lot of volunteers from the town, so we had to hire public works guys. Sometimes they cover the costs, sometimes they don't. So that's a flip-flop between us and public works. That's all it is, the public works guys and the police.
Okay, so they've told you they're not going to cover it, so you're putting in the full amount?
Well, we don't know. I had to put it in because I had to spend it last year. I had to put that amount last year. I had to pay through my budget, public works guys that we had to hire for the haz waste days.
All right, I have no more questions, Mr. Brown.
All right, thank you, Mr. Walsh. Let's go to revenue on page 21.
I don't have a budget book with me, so I've got it on my sheets here.
You don't have the budget book, do you have the revenues?
I've got the revenue, but I don't have a budget book. They didn't have a budget book when I tried to get it.
All right. So your revenue is a little over 3 million, right?
Mm-hmm.
With 2.6, which is even of last year of being scale.
Correct. It's the same as last year.
Everything's the same as last year. So, all right, so are there any questions on revenue? Do you have any thoughts on it, Mr. Zabruski? With everything going on?
Sorry. You know, I think we're going to be good because everybody's home and everybody's doing work around the house and people are generating more trash. So I think we're going to be good. Sorry, you faded out.
Okay. Any questions? This is the last section we're going to be going through tonight because we're moving culture and rec. So I know you, Mr. Walsh. Yep.
I just have some questions. I mean, you took the exact same numbers. What did you see? Correct. What are the variances compared to last year's numbers? Are there any variances, or are we right on target to hit the numbers?
No, we're right on target. I think we're going to be right on target. The only thing, the expenses went up because of the contract. No, that was the revenue. I think we should be pretty close, right on target.
But like the town dump, the facility use charge, is that the $6 and what you get off the scale and all that stuff?
Yeah, that's a $6 charge, correct.
And despite all these people bringing in various amounts of stuff, you're always pretty much the same on that number?
Yeah, we're close. We're real close on it.
So you're pretty much at budget this year? You're at actuals?
I should be.
Budget. Okay. Mr. Walsh?
I'm okay. I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else?
Mr. Chair?
Yes?
This is Jack. Hey, Mr. Zimbowski, just a quick thought. Is it the same theme as we had on Blight, where more people are home? You were sort of alluding to this a minute ago, so they're taking advantage of the refurbishment. We talked about it also in the building, where people are sort of taking advantage of the home opportunity, and therefore you're you're calculating that even though the expense may be more, you're factoring in roughly the same amount of money in terms of the revenue side. Is that fair to say?
Correct. Yeah, I mean, last week I should have been in Aruba. We couldn't go, obviously, and my wife worked from home, and now we need a new bathroom remodeling, so that Aruba trip probably cost me 3 times as much here.
That's the $100,000 kitchen remodel?
Not on my salary.
Okay.
Okay. You all right, Mr. Testani?
Yes, thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Okay, that'll cover it for tonight. We got through Public Works. And we'll pick up next Wednesday. Next Wednesday, we're with the Board of Ed. We have a meeting next Wednesday and Thursday. I'll have to look at what's on Thursday, but Wednesday, the Board of Ed, and then we have a meeting the following week on Tuesday. But we're going to have to put in one more night, because I don't. Oh yes, we have police and fire next week as well. So we'll most likely we'll have to put in another night, unless we could find a spot for culture and rec and library. So with that said, can I have a motion to adjourn? Mr. Mottola, you guys sure about that? You don't want to stay longer? Okay, seconded by Mrs. Charlton. It's unanimous. Good night, everybody, and thank you.
Good night.